Audio is hovering at minus 12 decibels. We're go.
Bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're bringing towels, beautiful soft towels. They're bringing the ice, they're bringing water, they're bringing sinks, they're bringing the shower, they're bringing the dishes, they're bringing the dishwasher. Remember the dishwasher, you'd press it, boom, there'd be like an explosion. 5 minutes later, no water comes out. You have areas where there's so much water you don't know what to do with it. They're bringing dishwashers. One of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water.
Drop it. All right, power panel. Jake Huger, John Iadarola, Ramesh Srinivasan is back. Great to have you back.
What's up, man?
All right.
Nice to see you.
Great to see you, brother. So we got 2 great hours for you guys. Man, this Friday is chock full of news, and amazing news, fascinating news. We got to get through all of it because there's pork feces in the show, and apparently in your food. So thanks to Donald Trump. Just when you thought Donald Trump couldn't get worse, we find pork feces at the bottom of the barrel. Okay, so you'll see that story unfortunately later. And then the Matt Bevin story that's near the end of the show. What? Why did he pardon child rapists and murderers? And it turns out, I don't want to give it away, but the reason he did it, oh my God, it's unbelievable. So an amazing show today, and I'm not even, but wait till we get to Nancy Pelosi and her decision to hold the impeachment, because okay. So now Anna and I talked about this. It's a bungle off, and Pelosi's retaking the lead from Trump. She's like, no one will outbungle me, and the national press is all kissing her ass. It's amazing. It's amazing. This show is amazing. So don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
John, we also have announcements, right? We got a panic time here.
Don't go anywhere, but especially don't go outside because it's cold out there until you get something to warm you up. And we're gonna actually help you out with that, because right now you can gear up for winter with 30% off all hoodies and long sleeve shirts now at shoptyt.com. You can use the code winter30 at shoptyt.com and look at all the different options.
See, it's one of those sales where I go, really? 30% off? What are we doing? What are we, socialists giving the thing away? Okay.
Democratic socialists.
Yes, there you go.
I love how the mattress stores, the ads are always, the manager's out of town. Here, the manager's here, but he doesn't like it.
Yeah, not buying it.
He's not a fan.
I had a 2-hour debate on agitprop saying I'm a capitalist. What are we doing? Giving away the material. All right, anyway, shoptyt.com.
Okay.
Apparently it's a good time to buy.
Yeah. Coming up soon, Hassan debates Cenk on sales. Are they good or are they a social?
A 2-hour debate on shoptyt.com. All right, anyway, Merry Christmas, apparently, everybody.
Exactly, bah humbug from Cenk. Okay, let's jump into the news. Donald Trump got more than 80% of the evangelical vote, and he's probably gonna do fine with them come 2020, but he just lost at least one evangelical, and that is the person who wrote in Christianity Today an article about why Donald Trump should be removed from office. We wanna read some of that for you. And bear in mind, this is a magazine that's been around for some time, wrote about and supported the impeachment of both Nixon and Clinton before them. And they talk about that in this article, but then go on to say, whether Mr. Trump should be removed from office by the Senate or by popular vote next election, that is a matter of prudential judgment. That he should be removed, we believe, is not a matter of partisan loyalties, but loyalty to the creator of the 10 Commandments.
Wow.
And so through the course of the article, the writer Mark Galli goes through some of the evidence in the Ukraine scandal, but mostly focuses on his moral deficiencies, both leading up to the scandal, but in particular what this scandal represents. And one little brief overview I'll give you. I'm gonna give you a few articles, a few paragraphs at some point, but they say this president has dumbed down the idea of morality in his administration. He has hired and fired a number of people who are now convicted criminals. He himself has admitted to immoral actions in business and his relationship with women, about which he remains proud. His Twitter feed alone, with its habitual string of mischaracterizations, lies, and slander, is a near perfect example of a human being who is morally lost and confused. I just want to briefly say, it is amazing how many of his associates and aides and employees are in jail or have served their time. Like Sean Hannity spends his entire career trying to craft the idea that people like Barack Obama have as much sheer criminality around them. Like the fact that he's a Republican that makes them not care. But no president that I can think of had this many just admitted criminals, convicted criminals on a constant basis.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, two things about that, and then we'll get back to this article. One is that Donald Trump has all these not only convicted criminals around him, but his former lawyer is in prison right now for a crime they committed together, and that Trump should also be impeached for. But what did they have on Obama? He's from Chicago. That's all they had. That he was from the city of Chicago. Do you remember how many times they would say that? Oh, this is the kind of Chicago mentality that Obama has. Doing what?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and really fast, a bit of a disclaimer. We fully understand that both Trump and Obama have done tons of stuff that should be appalling and illegal, perhaps war crimes as well. We're talking about things that we have any chance of getting people like on cable news, people in Congress to actually admit is a crime. There's some stuff that we all accept is criminal behavior, but they're never going to.
Yeah, this also shows Democratic Party's incompetence, unfortunately, for the 100th time in a row or the 1,000,000th time in a row. Donald Trump, with all this, should be at a 12% popularity rating. I mean, Jesus Christ, can you imagine if Obama or Bill Clinton or Hillary Clinton, half their cabinet was in prison or convicted criminals and had broken 5 different laws and had lied 13,000 times, and it was proven by the Washington Post. My God, they would have been absolutely obliterated, run out of office, tarred and feathered at a 9% approval rating. But the Democrats are so incompetent that Donald Trump is sitting at like a 43% approval rating. That's outrageous. It's outrageously high. Even though it's very low for a president, it's outrageously high given what kind of a criminal he is. And so that goes back to this editorial finally going, hey, listen, man, I know you want me to say that the emperor has clothes on, but he doesn't. I'm just gonna say it. He's a deeply immoral man. Thank you, finally someone said it.
I mean, definitely what we have here is a factory or a house full of criminals, and what we see occurring here in relation to this story has a lot to do with what religion and Christianity itself specifically mean in this country. I think that's a really interesting point, right? What Christianity means in different countries and different cultures can be completely different things. Christianity can be used as an anti-colonial movement or a liberation theology movement. But here in this country, for some reason, because of certain interpretations of religious freedom and definitely the pro-life side of things, it has had a stranglehold as an evangelical sort of voting bloc or identity. Yeah. And I wonder with this editorial board, this is not just the author, but this is an editorial board of a well-known, not necessarily right-wing, but well-known evangelical magazine. whether that means the support is fraying, because on every measurement of Christianity, I'm not actually a Christian myself, but on every measurement of Christianity, Trump is essentially the opposite of that.
Yeah. Far more so than in traditional senses than Obama was, who was attacked as a secret Muslim. So it's weird how all that works out. More of the article goes into why Christians should be, especially evangelical Christians, should be worried about the long-term damage that could be done to public perceptions of evangelical Christianity if they don't speak out against Donald Trump. I'm gonna skip one graphic, but I wanna read one more for you. And it really goes into, yes, there are short-term wins for evangelicals. There are. Trump is incredibly deferential to them in terms of their social goals, judges that will support them and things like that. But you should be able to differentiate between government goals that you want and your attachment to your faith. The writer says, no matter how many hands we win in this political poker game, we are playing with a stacked deck of gross immorality and ethical incompetence. And just when we think it's time to push all of our chips to the center of the table, that's when the whole game will come crashing down. It will crash down on the reputation of evangelical religion and on the world's understanding of the gospel. And it will come crashing down on a nation of men and women whose welfare is also our concern. I would add, as an atheist, there's a lot of current problems without Donald Trump that you should also deal with. But yes, I can understand that concern.
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking a lot about this, especially since I've been joining you all. And I think a lot of what Trump does is he has a sort of a two-tiered strategy, right? All the policies support elite billionaire corporate interests, right? Yep. But a lot of the other kind of rhetorical approaches and at times policy approaches, especially with judges, pro-life judges, support culture war interests, right? So a lot of the populists, the mass block of voters tend to be quite poor, right? And tend to kind of adhere to this sort of warped, I would say, interpretation of evangelical Christianity. So it's part of this overall strategy, and I am just hopeful that we see the fraying of this with examples like this that are actually applying a Christian ideal litmus test to someone whose actions represent the absolute anti-Christian approach.
Yeah. But so that religion and state unfortunately have totally merged within the Republican Party, and it's the same exact message. Think about it. A lot of evangelical leaders now are pushing prosperity gospel. What is prosperity gospel? The poor give to the rich.
That's true.
Like literally. The pastors are incredibly wealthy. They demand 2-3 different private jets from their flock. And the folks who are middle class and poor give money to the incredibly wealthy pastors, and they say that's okay because God wants the pastor to be rich. He wants them to be obscenely rich, which is the exact opposite of what the Bible says. It's not even close. It's not even close, right? And so, and then they say, don't worry, then you'll get it in heaven, or if you give me $1 now, you'll get $10 later. It's just a total scam. And what is the Republican Party? Tricking poor people into giving to the rich. Redistribution of wealth to the top. The tax cuts that Trump passed, $2 trillion in tax cuts, 83% of them go to the top 1%. But most of his voters are poor. He does the best with people who do not have a college education. That's his #1 demographic. So the folks who have the least amount of money enable Donald Trump to give all of the money to the rich. It's the same exact thing as the prosperity gospel.
Yeah, it makes me think about whether we can think about the evangelical population in this country not in a vacuum as an inherently right-wing Republican constituency, right? Could there be a way to counter mobilize that population?
Of course,
according to the actual principles?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not the Bible, but just in some political calculus.
I would argue it's different. It's difficult though, because hypothetically within evangelical Christianity, there's any number of different issues that they could mobilize on, vote on. Some of them might lean more conservative, some might lean more progressive, but they've been taught that there is one, maybe two. We have issues with gay people too, but it's mostly abortion and that's it. That's the only thing you should think about. Forget all of those other values. Forget 99% of what Jesus said, even about abortion in the Bible, not Jesus, but the Bible is very clear that abortion is acceptable in some circumstances. So don't think about any of that, just abortion. Until you break that, I don't see how you get a significant portion of them to cross over. But we do have a reaction to that Christianity Today article coming from Donald Trump, who says a far left magazine, or very progressive as some would call it, which has been doing poorly and hasn't been, he checked their distribution. He checked before he wrote that, he checked to see if it was down. So they're doing worse, he checked because he cares. Which has been doing poorly and hasn't been involved with the Billy Graham family for many years. Christianity Today knows nothing about reading a perfect transcript of a routine phone call, and would rather have a radical left non-believer who wants to take your religion and your guns than Donald Trump as your president. No president has done more for the evangelical community, and it's not even close. You'll not get anything from those Dems on stage. I won't be reading ET again.
Entertainment Tonight? Or
I guess. Yeah, that's the best case scenario. Is he's talking about Entertainment Tonight.
There's just a typo. Like he just doesn't care.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yes.
Okay, and never fixes it.
Yeah.
Okay, so are they far left? Of course not. No. Okay, they are very anti-choice, proudly anti-choice. This same editorial board supported not just Nixon's but Clinton's impeachment, saying he was immoral. They said we used almost the same exact standard for Clinton as we did for Trump, and if you were principled, of course you would come to the same conclusion. And they said we love what Trump is doing on what they would call the pro-life issue and on abortion. We love what he's doing in terms of what they call religious freedom, right? But he's like the Mark Galli explained, when you take all of his deep immorality, it tips the scales in favor of no, it can't justify what he's doing in terms of his policy. So they're not remotely far left. All of that is, of course, lies. He didn't check whether their subscriptions are going up or down. He just but to him, in his mind, if someone is getting bad ratings, that means they're a bad person.
Yeah.
Because he's a clown, and he performs in a circus, so he thinks the circus is everything.
Yeah.
It's notable, though, that this magazine has decided to elevate other issues that Trump represents the absolute abomination of in terms of morality, integrity toward women, service toward people and poor people. It's decided to elevate those things over the pro-life category. So I mean, this is, you know me, I'm a hopeful person. So I'm sort of seeing this as maybe like a blueprint for a new ledger of mobilizing people against someone who's the most anti-Christian.
Yeah. But see, isn't that interesting that if you elevate women and other human beings to the same level as anyone else, that's it, not above them, but at the same level so that everybody's equal. Donald Trump and his followers find that so offensive that they say that's a far left position. That women would have the same rights as men is so far left that these guys are, even though they're anti-choice, etc., are hopeless.
Yeah. I know this is a small point, but I think it's weird how when he's trying to communicate, because remember, he's a Christian. He's a Christian. When he tries to communicate with Christians, he said, they're gonna take your religion and your guns. It's just this weird mixing up of like old school right wingers and evangelicals. What about like your guns being taken away is supposed to be incredibly scary to the people who believe that Jesus said, if you're struck, to turn the other cheek. He didn't say turn the other cheek and then pull out your AR and blast away. And yet you just all mix it together because the direct pronouncements of Jesus are supposed to be ignored. You're supposed to care about abortion and that's about it.
Yeah, it's a great example of what I was trying to say earlier, that what religion means through the matrix of place and culture and history can be more different than similar, right?
100%.
And we see that here.
Well, this is, I hate to do it again, but it's another issue of the Democrats and the media falling asleep at the wheel. Like if we had an effective Democratic Party that had courage, they would challenge these things that are ridiculous and absurd. But it's religion, so they're like, oh no, run away. We don't want to talk about religion. That'll help the right wing. No, it won't. If you actually said the things that Jesus said, it wouldn't help the Republicans. It would deeply hurt the Republicans because they're against what Jesus said. But they have no courage. And the media, same thing. Oh, no, it's gonna offend religious people. I'm gonna lose readers. I'm gonna lose ratings. I don't want to have Donald Trump say I have poor ratings. So I'm not gonna touch it at all. And we're gonna have black and white discussions of religion that have no nuance, no intellectual context, no background. Just they're the worst. So they just sit there and go, oh, okay, if they say the only thing that's in the Bible is that Jesus hated abortion, again, the Bible's actually pro-abortion. They're like, oh, it doesn't matter that it's not true. I'm just not gonna touch it. What do you think I am, journalist?
I think because he had tweeted these two things early in the morning, then he returned to the topic. I think we have one more tweet, if we could bring that up. I guess the magazine Christianity Today is looking for Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, or those with a socialist and communist bent to guard their religion. How about Sleepy Joe? The fact is, no president has ever done what I have done for evangelicals or religion itself.
Oh, come on, man. I mean, how is that not blasphemous?
And obviously offensive in lots of ways, right? The kind of common thing that we're gonna see moving forward with the way progressives are labeled as called communists, though a socialist is actually someone who supports public education, the post office, social security. You guys have covered this better than anyone. But I think it's also the point that religion, at least I'm a Bernie Sanders surrogate, so full disclosure, but at the end of the debate, in his last words, Sanders said yesterday, I want this to be about love. And I was like, dang, that's what religion actually in its ideal form should be about.
Yeah.
And they've turned it on its head. They proved George Orwell right 1,000 times in 1,000 different ways. Now, Jesus isn't the Prince of Peace, he's the Prince of Shotguns.
Well put.
Right, and then Christianity isn't about love; it's about hate. And who do you hate, and who can you attack? And if you're looking for a socialist communist, his name is Jesus Christ.
Exactly.
He literally said, "Give away all of your possessions, all of your possessions." You want to talk about redistribution of wealth, and give it to the poor and the needy. Where's that message in the Republican Party? They're a bunch of unbelievable liars, and the idiot Democrats and the incompetent media in this country have totally let them get away with it.
Yeah. Why don't we take our first break?
Yes. All right. When we come back, that was just a warm-up act. I have actual passion and rage later. Okay, we'll be right back. Cenk Ugranic is sparing with you guys, ready for a rock and roll show.
We've never played instruments before, but we're gonna try for the first time right now.
My God, if Jesus came back, how much would the Republicans hate him? Jesus would come back and be like, no, I'm done with all the banks. And he said, now you have to give away all of your possessions to the poor. Steve King would be like, oh, Weezy, they're coming to get me.
It's not about fighting amongst each other. It's about making sure we correct the political system so our government works for us and our representatives actually represent us. And unfortunately, not a lot of the rest of the media even understands that concept, but we do here.
You can't be pro-life and pro the death penalty.
They're afraid to do it because they're stuck in this, this lie. The Republicans are great with money and the economy, and then they don't spend all your money and take it from you. It's exactly what they do. Just say it.
Okay, we're about to have some fun on the show. Strap on. That's not a thing. She's gonna fall one of these days. One of these days she's gonna fall.
Okay. All right, we gotta do the story. This country is not run by the people for the people. It's run by corporations, it's run by weapons manufacturers, it's run by private military contractors.
We've been telling you that people care about policy, and people on TV, they're like, no, everybody just cares about gloss and shine and whether you're rolling up your sleeves well. But what's more impressive is policy, and that you should make equal note of that, and you most certainly have not.
The Monsanto Corporation continues to sell a herbicide called Roundup, but you should know that that herbicide is a potential killer. Recent studies have linked Roundup to significant increases in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. That's a cancer that can be devastating to you and the people you love. While Roundup continues to cause cancer, Monsanto continues to make huge profits from the sale of Roundup. They will not take it off the market. If you or a loved one are exposed to Roundup at work or home and then developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, you may be entitled to financial compensation. And it's important for you to take action now and hold Monsanto accountable.
Damn it, they failed us. And if you're not angry about that, Michael, and any of you out there, then you're damn wrong, because you should be angry. Young Turks.
It was genuine. He was mad.
Cenk Uygur, known online as one of the Young Turks, isn't afraid to throw some punches.
3, 2, 1, fade up.
Cenk the Turk Uygur.
What kind of TV station is this? The whole point is for me to yell and scream and tell you what I think.
It was right out of like Wayne's World.
This guy on this little rinky-dink website is speaking truth to power.
We've been averaging 600,000 views a day, beating most of the cable shows in America.
We're the largest online news show in the world.
We're celebrating our 1 billionth view.
Television, we're coming.
More politics ahead with Cenk Uygur.
He knew that the MSNBC opportunity was an experiment.
If fill-in host beats CNN and headline news combined, at some point, they want to give me a show.
Every single year, that comes out of our paycheck. We put it in, and you're saying we were suckers.
When you, as a host, tells someone you're interviewing to shut up, that's going to raise a red flag.
That guy needed a tall glass of shut-up juice.
If President Obama's doing the wrong thing, I'm not going to tell you that he's doing the right thing so I can, quote, support him.
He says to me, you won't believe the meeting that I just had.
The head of MSNBC talked to me.
They want him off the air.
Cenk took an incredible risk.
We're supposed to challenge the government. That's the role of the media. The Democrats and the Republicans are here to screw you. And who on the air is saying it?
I wouldn't have done what he did.
That if I'm going to be a talk show host, I should be the biggest talk show host in the country. I don't think anyone else does it better. I don't think anyone's even close.
Before you know it, I'll be back on your TV doing a national show. I guarantee it.
All right, back in the Young Turks, lots of great comments as usual. Donna in the member section says, keep in mind that the people who vote for Trump are members of a cult. No matter what the Democrats would say, they would not listen and would not believe. Totally right. It doesn't matter what one of the leading evangelical magazines in the country would say. Of course they don't care. And I said about the guy yesterday, oh, he's gonna get fired. I mean, they're gonna get so ruthlessly attacked. There's no way he survives. It turns out he was already stepping down. That's why. He's stepping down in January. This was the very last thing that he did. Otherwise, there's no way he could actually say the truth because it'll cost you your livelihood, your reputation, and everything you've ever worked for because the cult will destroy you.
But to be fair, the board did okay it.
Yeah.
And he's gone, but they still need their reputation.
Document.
So
yeah. No, as I talked about yesterday, tremendous courage. I deeply respect him, even though we don't agree on politics. All right. Phoenix 9 has a slightly more cynical look at this. The evangelicals already got their judges, so now they find their conscience not impressed. It's interesting way of looking at it.
There's no end to how many judges they'd like.
That's right.
No billionaire is like, that's enough, I don't need more. No, there's an endless hunger.
Yeah, Cerberus Alpha says, Jenks adopted black son 2020. Oh, okay. I didn't know I adopted you, but okay. God bless. He says, oh, my Johnny Pie and Ramesh on the panel. Talk about power.
Nice.
All right, excellent. And following up on that one last one, well, two last ones from Twitter. Kieran says, watching TYT live for the first time this week. Love the power panel. Thank you, Kieran, we appreciate it. And also using hashtag TYT live on Twitter to talk to us. Eclectic Miscellaneous says, if he thinks Christianity today is far left, then imagine what he would think of TYT. His head might literally explode. Apparently the same with the entire national
media.
He
would think of us as some sort of post-human cyber commune or something. I don't know. Okay, so before we jump back into the news, I want to let you know about two interesting programs you should definitely check soon. One outside of TYT, that is ABC News' The Year 2019, where Brett Ehrlich will be hosting once again, breaking down the year. Tune in Sunday at 9, 8 Central to check it out. Should be a lot of fun, it always is. You can also see writer and director Scott Z. Burns, who's gonna be a guest on The Conversation tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific time. He'll be talking to us about his movie, The Report on Amazon Prime Video. Tune in at I was gonna read that. TYT.com/live. You can figure out the rest of that and see Scott Burns.
He's a wonderfully progressive filmmaker, done some of the top movies in the country, and man, he knows his stuff and is super progressive. Check that out, it's a great interview.
Okay, so let's jump back into the news. Blessedly, Rudy Giuliani has been out of the picture for the last week or two. He's been off doing his investigating in Europe, and he's coming back soon. But what do people like Lindsey Graham think about him? Is he actually helping out the president the way the president seems to think? Well, we've got a couple of sources close to the president. First, Lindsey Graham, what does he think about this investigation?
As to Rudy, I don't know what Rudy's got, but I'm gonna send him a letter. If you're gonna go on national television and tell the country that you found evidence of a cover-up, then I hope you know what you're talking about. He's a good friend. He was a strong supporter of Senator McCain. He actually helped engineer an endorsement by candidate Trump of my good friend John McCain in the primary. I like Rudy a lot, but we're going to have to watch what we say. So I'm going to have an open invitation to Rudy Giuliani to come to the Senate Judiciary Committee and tell us what you found. And if he comes, you got to be willing to ask questions about your conduct. It's just not good for the country to make these accusations on cable television without them being tested.
So look, Lindsey is almost always 100% deferential and protective of Donald Trump. That's also generally true of Rudy Giuliani. So it's interesting to see Lindsey Graham not really explicitly attacking or challenging Rudy Giuliani, but the threat is sort of, I think, fairly obviously there.
Yeah, no, the reason Rudy is empowered is because Trump, to this day, keeps saying, "Oh, Rudy's got stuff, man. Rudy's, oh yeah, I sent him. He's fantastic." And so now Lindsey Graham knows that Donald Trump's an idiot, and so he has to talk to the baby in the way that you would talk to little kids, and he's like, "Now remember, if Rudy comes to the Senate, he's basically saying the other side would get to ask him questions, and he would have to have this thing we call evidence. So we have to be really careful. Do you understand that?" He's not talking to Giuliani. He's talking to Trump. Because without Trump, Giuliani's a raving lunatic that's wandering the streets. Who cares about Giuliani?
Well, even with Trump, he is.
That's right. But it's Lindsey Graham saying, now remember Donald, remember Donnie, we need this thing called evidence. Don't bring him here and get yourself in more trouble. Remember that, Donnie? Okay, but because he's dealing with two imbeciles.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're at a situation right now where they can be disorganized and off the rails, but they know fully well that they're going to get away with it because everything is partisan and nothing is evidence-based when it comes to the Senate and these Republicans who refuse to just sort of evaluate things neutrally or evidentially, right? Yeah. However, it does raise the point, and this thought crossed my mind. I saw you guys talk about it a little bit last night, where Andrew Yang made the point at the debate last night, well, people don't really care about the impeachment. He kind of walked it back a little bit. I personally fully support, right, that Trump is impeached and this is a violation, right? But the question I just want to ask you guys, it gives me an opportunity since I haven't talked to you guys about this, is why is Trump not been impeached on about 7 or 8 other things concurrently with this specific Ukraine thing that a lot of working class people may not care about, right? Like for destroying not following the law on many occasions, the emoluments clause, right? Enriching his own business, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I can list them out, but I won't do that. But I just wonder, why can't the impeachment itself be on and why couldn't we have pushed this so that there are multiple, red marks on Trump's record so that becomes part of our political capital in destroying him in 2020?
There's a simple answer to that, and it's a very depressing one. Democratic leadership is historically incompetent. So now I'm seeing all over online, and they feel empowered. Conservatives saying all over, and it looks like they're winning over independents. There was no crimes charged, so I guess Donald Trump didn't commit a crime. They just disagree with him. No, I told you it was too vague. I told you abuse of power is too vague. He's committed actual crimes. The hush money payments to his mistresses. Exactly. Michael Cohen, his co-conspirators in prison. Why don't you say it? Why don't you say it? And so
also actual crimes here too, but those are just the latest in a long line of actual crimes.
Yeah, I've been observing, Steve Bannon has been kind of speaking out and doing interviews, and he often talks about the political arc, right? The political optics, as a media person like us, right? Yeah. The political optics of the impeachment. Like, what is the narrative that's produced out of the impeachment? Because it's not going to be conviction about Trump, and how does that stay and become part of the narrative of defeating Trump in 2020? Yeah. We got to get that narrative right, because otherwise, if it's just this Ukraine thing that a lot of people don't care about, to your point, Cenk, the Senate is not going to convict, then what do we have? We have the witch hunt thing all over again, right?
With this Democratic leadership, we have no hope. They're so terrible at their jobs. I don't know if it's because of some degree of corruption they have regarding money, so that's why they never want to talk about Trump's money or campaign finance violations and all the things that he has most clearly done.
Stolen appropriations from Congress for the wall.
Yeah.
All the sexual harassment stuff that drove out Franken and Conyers.
Yeah. But I think that it's probably just largely, they just have no earthly idea what they're doing, and they are enabled by the national media that sees their grotesque incompetence and goes, attaboy, a master legislator. I mean, my God, there's an article today in a HuffPost that's supposed to be progressive about Nancy Pelosi, her record of accomplishment is amazing. It's Like it's Orwellian. The press also is an alternate reality where these people are competent.
There's a fixation on causes that don't necessarily matter to 99% of voters.
I mean, look, if it were up to me, it would not have been those specific charges that they filed. It would have been broader. It wasn't up to me. Nancy Pelosi and Democratic leadership seem to think that this is easier to grasp. It's a very clear thing. You can see it. They have the transcript and all of that. I disagree with part of the premise. I don't think it's true that the vast majority don't care. I think the vast majority of the country, 70 to 80%, say that what he did was wrong, and it's very understandable. A narrow majority of the country thinks that he should be removed from office based on it. But I think to the extent that more people don't get why it's wrong, I think that a lot of people who should be making the case for why people being willing to sell out our foreign policy to manipulate an election should be wrong. We should all care about that. I think Andrew Yang would prefer to focus on other issues. That's perfectly fine. I know there are some people who try to make the case that nothing of this sort matters because they apparently have little concern for the future of American elections. And this knee-jerk need to protect Donald Trump from any accountability. I don't get it. I would have put a whole ton of other crimes that he's committed on there. I think that them letting him, even just the 10 counts of obstruction of justice under the Mueller report, I think that should have been involved too. Any number of different things. But I partially disagree.
We agree. I mean, it's an all hands on deck kind of approach that we both would support. Yeah.
Now I do want to just add one more thing. That was Lindsey Graham. Ivanka Trump was also asked during a recent appearance on TV about Rudy Giuliani. Is he actually giving good counsel to the president?
In your opinion, do you think he's getting good counsel from Rudy Giuliani, the president's personal attorney?
I know Rudy Giuliani in a very different context as one of the greatest mayors in the history of this country and a real hero in New York. So that is the experience I've had with Rudy for a very long period of time. He's smart and thoughtful and a real warrior, and was a great mayor.
That was not an answer to the question. She paused. She looked down.
Deflection.
I prefer to think of him as of 15 years ago.
When he flushed all like the working class black and brown people out of Manhattan.
That's true too. Yeah, and all that stuff that she said about being a hero and all of that. Yeah, he's done nothing since then but try to totally destroy that reputation.
I'm now broken record. I mean, Rudy Giuliani and Donald Trump might have literally lost their minds. Like they are so unbelievably unintelligent and incoherent. They're raving, sweaty tooth madmen, and the Democrats are kind of losing to them. Oh my God.
It's incredible.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
Yeah. Can I say one other thing about the nature of the impeachment over this thing? It's one thing that I think sometimes language matters. And so I know that early on when people were talking about the transcript, we all want to be very clear that it's not an actual transcript because it implies things in the word. There's another word that I want to take issue, or a phrase I want to take issue with, and it is describing the plot was to get dirt on Joe Biden, or Rudy Giuliani is going there to get dirt on Joe Biden. Hypothetically, if there is dirt there, they'd like it. But the plot is not to get dirt. The plot is to make it seem as if there is dirt. They didn't want Zelensky to do a CNN interview and announce investigations because they knew that Zelensky would find something. They knew that it doesn't matter if Zelensky finds anything. If he does the press conference, if he talks about the investigation, if that becomes a topic of news, that does the damage by itself. And that's why, for someone like me, I don't support Joe Biden. I don't, a lot of people don't, but you should still be concerned about this because the easy, casual selling out of our foreign policy to manipulate the media into affecting public opinion of an election, that does matter. This is not a case where we can say, well, if there's something there, we all need to know the facts. This is being manipulated into thinking something is there, whether it is or not.
And by the way, you know what this sounds just like, unfortunately, is Hillary Clinton in the 2016 election.
Yeah, look, there's any number of terrible things that Hillary Clinton did that could have been the focus of the last couple of weeks of media coverage. What was the focus was stuff that was not even accurate. But does it matter after the fact that it wasn't? No, if it had an effect, it had an effect.
Let progressives at these guys. Let us fight them. You corporate Democrats have no idea what you're doing. Please, for God's sake, step aside. Otherwise, you might even lose to this buffoon one more time. My God, if Biden runs into into Trump, and they have this kind of strategy. Oh God.
Oh yeah, and the whole impeachment doesn't matter. If it's Biden, it's still gonna be a dominant narrative in the election. Exactly the same as if it hadn't been discovered.
Yep.
Okay, why don't we turn to a very different topic? Okay. Last night at the Democratic debate in the spin room, we had one of our associates was there. We Skyped in to the coverage last night, but was also conducting some interviews. And we have one that we want to focus on. So this is David Dan talking with Adi Barkan about Medicare for All, the rollout, and Adi's support for Elizabeth Warren's plan. We've got a couple clips. Here's the first.
A lot of progressives have talked about her transition plan for Medicare for All. Obviously, you're a huge Medicare for All activist and enthusiast. Why do you think her plan is the one that gives us the best chance of getting to health care for every man, woman, child in America?
I am excited about Elizabeth's plan because I think that it strengthens and expands Medicare as much as possible as quickly as possible, and then sets us up to complete Medicare for all by the end of her first term. It's a huge deal that her plan would, in the first 100 days, expand Medicare to cover about half of America for free. It will be life-changing for tens of millions of people who are currently uninsured, underinsured, or drowning in medical debt. It will also be excellent for the Americans over 50 who want to buy into Medicare now. This is a huge down payment on Medicare for all that will quickly show the American people that it works, and positions us to win the full enchilada in 2023 after what should be very favorable Senate elections in 2022. Both the Sanders and Jayapal bills also have transition periods with optional buy-in, so that we can prove that the system works.
Okay, so obviously I have endorsed Bernie Sanders, and so you're gonna be shocked to find out that I support his plan instead. But I don't think that there's anyone with a straight face that can say that Adi is not serious and honest about what he thinks about this issue, considering all the activism that he's done over the years.
So he has ALS, and technology is amazing that they, that we can talk to him in that way. He's one of the smartest, most effective, most progressive folks in the entire country, and so. I don't know anyone in the movement that doesn't have tremendous respect for him. So him endorsing Elizabeth Warren was a big deal. Now, part of the reason for that is Elizabeth Warren has helped him, not personally, but on the causes we all care about, behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, etc. That's why when I would defend Elizabeth Warren over and over again, and some folks got frustrated, no, because I know folks like Adi and Matt Stoller and others who are huge advocates of Elizabeth Warren because they've seen what she does, not just publicly, but behind the scenes. She's a real progressive fighter. Having said that, I did endorse Bernie Sanders, and part of the reason is, like, we have to do a frontal assault on the system, and we have to do it instantly. Because if we don't do it and we delay, the delay does not help us. It allows the establishment to pick away at things, and it allows the Republicans to regroup and perhaps win another election and destroy our chances of ever getting Medicare for all. So it's a perfectly legitimate point of view that Adi has there. And in fact, he makes a really great point about, look, even the Jayapal bill, which is considered the gold standard for Medicare for all, and Bernie Sanders' bill do have a transition period. So you should also keep that in mind.
Yeah, I mean, I say this as a surrogate for Senator Sanders, so I should just say that full disclaimer. I have a great deal of respect for Adi Barkan, and also a lot of respect for Elizabeth Warren, who is a legit fighter for progressive causes, in my opinion, as well. I just think the major distinction, and we saw what happened with Warren with the kind of tap dancing a little bit to the center and to the progressives with her Medicare for All plan, or so-called Medicare for All plan that turned into choice-based plan, that it became problematic. And I know you guys have covered this. I just want to mention one or two things, which is, her bill actually requires, and I shout out to my friend Matt Donovan, this American Prospect article on this. It requires 3 separate bills to be passed, including an immigration bill. Which, how do we know that's gonna happen, right? That's gonna be a lot of work, which requires those people to pay taxes for that bill. So the specifics of it actually take away from the actual choice I believe that Medicare for All would make possible, which is the choice only anyone cares about, which is not to be exploited by Blue Cross Blue Shield or by Kaiser, if you will, but to actually have choice over the hospitals and doctors.
Yeah. And one other thing I would add is, again, with all respect to Adi, I would never expect 3 years out that an election will be favorable. I don't expect 3 days out that an election will be fair. Maybe it will be. Maybe it'll be great, and maybe we'll break the historic trend where a president generally has really hard midterms. But I would never make my planning politically contingent on expecting that an election would be easy. I think they're all going to be hard for the rest of our lives, honestly. But we do have more from Adi. David asked about the difference between Elizabeth Warren's plan and some of the other candidates' plans.
The difference between Elizabeth's plan and Buttigieg's could not be starker. First, he doesn't have the goal of getting us to Medicare for all. He told me he is ideologically neutral between public and private insurance. This is, frankly, why the health insurance industry is dumping millions of dollars into his campaign. And then, second, his public option is designed to fail. It is too expensive for working families and not generous enough to attract people. So it won't actually do the job of boxing out the private insurance companies. Because it is not actually meant to.
Are you concerned about progressives splitting the vote and maybe allowing a more moderate candidate to become the nominee?
I think it is great to have two progressive champions. There will be a time to unify, soon enough. But for right now we need to be leading with our values, and that is what they are doing.
Yeah, I've often thought that having two progressives in the race is fantastic because it doubles your message. Guys, all of these debates and all these media appearances are in a sense free advertising for the progressive cause. So better to have two people that doubles the message rather than one. And one person seems like an outlier, perhaps it allows the mainstream media to frame them as a radical. But when you have two out of the top three that are progressives, then all of a sudden they're the majority of the leadership of the Democratic Party. It makes all the difference. And there are massive differences. Just because there's something is called a public option doesn't mean that that's the end of the conversation. You do have to look at the details, and Adi's again right that the Buttigieg one is a total scam that the private insurance companies love because it unloads all their costs onto the taxpayers and then pretends the government is incompetent. It's a total Trojan horse. It is different than the Warren plan. All that being said, still, the Warren plan takes too long, and it's when you go to anything that isn't Medicare for all, there's an illusion of choice. But as long as you're paying co-pays, premiums, and deductibles, it's not really a choice. Yeah. It's not the same system.
Agreed. I mean, I think it's given that the general mainstream and corporate media blackout certainly on Bernie, but even to some extent, I would say on Elizabeth Warren, it's very important that last night we had two extremely articulate figures attacking corruption, attacking the causes that you've cared about for so long, campaign finance and so on. The corporate financing of campaigns. This was a highlight of the debate yesterday. They were both on point with this, and the fact that we had these two voices that were not going after one another really gave it was just crystal clear who was on who had a vision and who didn't.
Who was uncorrupted and who was conducting their campaign from a wine cave. Literally.
Are you thinking that's going to catch on? Okay. Well, why don't we take our second break?
Yes. Yeah. All right. When we come back, as we promised, you'll never eat pork again when we return. I'm old enough that I remember when Captain Crunch put the berries in it.
Yay, crunch berries!
And I was like, ooh, the fake berries.
Remember?
We're gonna try that.
We did a story back in the day about how a woman sued, General Mills.
She'd been eating it for 4 years, believing that it was actual berries.
Yeah. She's like, these aren't real berries at all. Yeah. I'm like, I got news for you. Captain Crunch isn't really a captain or a person. Joining me now, legendary whistleblower and American hero, Edward Snowden. First question is, hey, where are you?
I'm in my apartment in Moscow.
All of a sudden, in the studio, Jim Gaffigan, everybody.
Mental illness is, completely undiagnosed in our society.
It's not about a particular administration. It's about a broken system of power, and through that, really, the instrumentalization of a system of not justice, but injustice.
People understand whether they claim to deny climate change or not. Our collective house is in crisis. We're also dealing with the legacy of 40 years of economic policies that have made people's lives more precarious.
Sometimes you gotta force people into their humanity.
Sometimes you have to shake people into empathy.
Senator Elizabeth Warren joins us in the studio.
Healthcare is a basic human right, and we are fighting for basic human rights.
In order to actually achieve that vision of everyone having access to the same resources and getting to determine the outcome of their life, we have a lot of work to do, and it needs to start right now.
Here's something you may not know. When you deposit your money in a big bank, it doesn't just sit, safe and secure, in a vault. Instead, your money could end up building oil pipelines, mining for coal, or drilling in the Arctic. So if you're concerned about the planet, give your money something good to do. Make the move to green with Aspiration's fossil fuel-free account and join the thousands each week who are switching to save their dollars and save the planet at the same time.
The Monsanto Corporation continues to sell a herbicide called Roundup, but you should know that that herbicide is a potential killer. Recent studies have linked Roundup to significant increases in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. That's a cancer that can be devastating to you and the people you love. While Roundup continues to cause cancer, Monsanto continues to make huge profits from the sale of Roundup. They will not take it off the market. If you or a loved one are exposed to Roundup at work or home and then developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, you may be entitled to financial compensation, and it's important for you to take action now and hold Monsanto accountable.
Cenk Uygur joins us.
We are progressive and unapologetically so. Very happy to say that millennial and Gen Z generations are massively progressive along with us.
Democrats, they've been so weak for so long. For God's sake, fight for your side.
I would not like to compromise with Republicans. I would like to defeat them. Lynn, do you support Donald Trump?
Yes, I like Donald Trump.
Well, that's why we think you're racist. The 5 black kids in Central Park did not commit the rape. He said, who cares? Keep them in prison anyway. They probably did something. He's a terrible guy. Very fine people on the side chanting, Jews will not replace us. He says we should ban all Muslims. Well, that's bigotry by definition. He said it during the campaign trail over and over again. Called Latinos criminals and rapists. See, you're used to Republicans being strong on television and Democrats cowering. New day in America. Progressives, we actually fight back.
All right, back in the Young Turks member section first, as always, tyt.com/join to become a member. Terry Teeter, a Teeter-Totter German teacher, writes in.
You nailed that, wow.
Thank you. Ramesh, I hope your book Beyond the Valley arrives at my local bookstore tomorrow. It takes 10 days probably to cross the Atlantic. Look forward to learning how to do software and social media better. So there you go.
You all picked that one for me, thank you.
So Witchy Witch writes in, thank you, Cenk. Delaying Medicare for all is disastrous. Okay, go to Twitter. Joe Oliver 44 says, I saw the report over the weekend. It's good. Basically slimes the Obama administration. Well, that's not its intent, but it does show that they did not hold people accountable. So if you want to hear more about that, Scott Burns is on at 8 o'clock tonight, right here. So stay right here. He's an amazing director, did some of the top movies in the country, and he did the report. You'll find out more about that. It's about the torture report. Stephen Payne writes in, they aren't going after Trump on financial crimes for the same reason you don't light a match while drenched in gasoline. And Karen Curley says, how is one sweaty tooth? It's actually an old Walt Whitman poem, and it's my allusion to that poem. But every time I do say it, people do ask that question.
I missed that reference.
Yes. Okay.
God, we have the weirdest references on the show.
I'm a bit scholarly, a little bit of Walt Whitman, a little bit of Maximus Decimus Meridius.
On the damage report, I quoted a character from Revenge of the Sith, so I've read too.
By the way, if you didn't get it, Maximus Decimus Meridius is from Gladiator.
Oh, I got it.
I didn't get it. I didn't know it.
Okay, so with that, before we jump into the news, it is almost time to crown 2019's Turk of the Year and Jerk of the Year. If you're not familiar with this, it's the award for basically the best person and the worst person each year. Back in 2018, Donald Trump actually won an award for once. He was crowned Jerk of the Year. The Turk of the Year, a little known woman named Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And so now it's time for a new Turk, a new jerk. And Cenk is gonna be doing that live on Monday, December 23rd, starting at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific on tyt.com/live. Comment using hashtag TYTLive to let us know your predictions. See who can nail both.
All right.
I've got my fingers crossed for us to get chosen.
All right.
I will also say, by the way, coming up on New Year's Day, big show on the Damage Report. Jared Jackson is gonna be joining me. We're gonna be breaking down our top 10 garbage people of 2019. So perhaps some overlap with Jerk of the Year there.
Yes.
Okay, with that, why don't we jump back into the news? If you're a fan of pork, you might want to close this video because things are about to get a little bit nasty. There's upcoming changes to regulations inside of some of the big factories that are managing pork production and safety. And so in traditional plants, up until now, as many as 7 federal inspectors work on the processing line, handling hog carcasses and checking for defects. Under the new system, that number will be reduced to 2 or 3 federal inspectors who have more experience, but who will have limited hands-on interaction with the carcasses. So you might wonder, well, then who is gonna be having that hands-on experience? That's the plant's own employees who will be checking and sorting the hog carcasses and letting the federal inspectors, called consumer safety inspectors, check their work from a distance. There's no required federal training for those employees. So there's gonna be far fewer inspectors, and they are going to explicitly be away from the actual inspection, which the own plant's employees will be doing. So I'm sure the plants will be very rigorous in that, training it up, making sure there's incentives to catch every problem.
So before we get into more of what will be in your pork now, I'll just get to some of it. Feces, sex organs, toenails, bladders, and unwanted hair, as opposed to wanted hair.
That will stay in.
Yes. So now, what I want to explain though is what the current standard is to give you a sense of how disastrous the new standard is. Because the current standard is not that comforting. So the speed limit at a processing plant, and the inspectors are supposed to do this at this rate. Right now, the good standard is 1,106 hog carcasses per hour. So the inspector is supposed to somehow see 1,100 carcasses go by him in an hour and inspect them to make sure they're okay. Like, oh, I think they're fine, I think they're fine. Reminds me of the I Love Lucy skit.
I was just thinking of that.
Yeah, that's fine, it's fine, it's fine, right? And so that's the current standard, that's a good standard, okay? This one says, no, much faster, plus you don't work for the government, you work for the company, and you're in the distance. Well, I mean, first of all, if you're at a distance, how are you even seeing it? So it's already over, there's no inspections, okay? Number 2, what do you think that the plant owner is gonna do? Hey, now look, the inspector here, I'm paying you, but I want you to slow down the plant every once in a while, and I want you to point out all the things we're doing wrong and cost us a lot of money, and I'm gonna pay you good money for you to cost us money. Do you think that's how it's gonna go? There's no one on earth that thinks that's how it's gonna go. Their job is to maximize profit. That plant will keep on rolling. There is no such thing as inspections anymore. So God knows what's gonna be in our food, specifically in our pork. So, I guess maybe this is the worst form of pork barrel politics, if you will. I'm here all week. But no, just when you thought Trump couldn't screw anything up more, now you've got pork feces and toenails and sex organs in all of your pork products awaiting you, because we're literally not inspecting the food anymore.
I mean, industrial capitalism, which is exactly what the food industry is in the United States, it operates on the logic of scale and sort of profit, obviously, as you said, but profit through scale, right? So because a lot of this, this is specific to pork, but we can like look at it more generally as part of the food industrial complex in this country. And it's just astonishing that the regulators, the regulators for this work for the plant rather than the government. I just think it's important to point out that, a lot of people say, oh, the government shouldn't be in our business, blah, blah, blah. But in this, it's really important to understand what the government is in this kind of scenario is like our lawyer, is like the entity that protects people from these kinds of practices that have gone off the rails here in this country, and actually have gone off the rails long before Trump as well. So the other just point I want to make, which is really sad for me, it's something that I like think about a lot, is you can't afford to eat healthy unless you can afford it. You know what I mean? Like you can't afford to eat organic pork, if you will, the only way to avoid this, right? Unless you're super rich. So what it means is yet again and again and again across the board, poor working and middle class people are being screwed in this country.
Yeah. The government and the wealthy donors that have put Trump into power, they don't think that your kids are eating enough poop. Honestly, I mean, that's really as complicated as it is. Or at the least, it doesn't bother them enough that your kids are gonna eat more poop, as long as it allows these companies to make a little bit more money. I mean, every day on this show, some story comes up where if the Democrats knew at all what they were doing, it would be everywhere. It would be hashtag Trump's poop pork all over the place because he thinks your kids should be eating more poop. I mean, who doesn't like eating pork? I understand, they seem like great creatures, we should really stop eating them, but a lot of Americans do. Nobody thinks there's not enough pig testicles in their sausage. Nobody thinks that. Nobody thinks this could use a bit more texture. How about we get some toenails in there? This should be hung around his head, not only because it's disgusting and visceral and everybody cares about what's in their food, obviously, but it's clearly just being done to advantage the owners of literally like a handful of pork producing companies.
Yeah, so to Ramesh's point, look, corporations can represent themselves. They have an army of lawyers and their job is to maximize profit.
And they bought out our government.
And they've also bought all of our politicians, and hence this. I mean, why does Trump actually want pork feces in the thing? Who knows, he's a weirdo, maybe he does. But probably the reality is he doesn't care at all. What he cares about is the check he got. So this industry gave him and the Republican Party money. So they're like, yeah, sure. What do we care? The check cleared, go ahead, put it in everybody's food. But the government is supposed to be our advocate. The government's supposed to look out for the citizens. That's the whole point of the job of the government in a democracy. But we've lost that because the donors have captured almost our entire government. Okay, so last thing on this is 2 federal inspectors talked to reporters and they had some amazing things to say about this. They said the consumer's being duped. They believe that it actually is getting federally inspected when there's no one there to even watch or do anything about anything, okay? And in fact, they went on to say they won't even eat the meat processed by their own employers anymore because they have no idea what's going to be in there, and neither does anyone else.
Yeah, one of them also said, it's so hard to go to work without feeling physically sick watching this just happen, unfolding in front of you, especially since you took the oath to protect the American people. And my final comment, it's not like they were being regulated well before. This is worse, but the current situation was already almost exactly what those companies wanted. The quality of most foods is already not up to the level that it should be. There are foods that in Europe, they won't take our food, some of our meat, because of how much we allow to get into it. That was before these changes. We should be moving in the right direction. Instead, we're going back to the jungle. That's what it is.
Yeah, food doesn't have to inherently be as expensive as it is. It's a product of a sociopathic and toxic system. And I was watching your guys' coverage last night. Jair made such a great point where he was talking about how the wine cave actually is the mechanism that contributes to 3 people having equivalent wealth with 50% of the population, right? So look at this food thing. Look what gets sacrificed on the path to that, right? Yeah. All of our health, all of our bodies. So this is why we can't have a blah blah blah. We can't have anything, right? Yeah. We have to inherently transform the system.
I was in Taiwan recently, and they have signs in all the restaurants: no American meat. The rest of the world thinks we're barbaric, and we don't test any of our food, and our corporations have run amok, and they think our products are, and especially food, is dangerous. So they proudly advertise, don't worry guys, you're not gonna get sick. There's no American meat here. That's the sorry state of America. They've turned it into a third world country through this sickening corruption. Okay, we gotta go. Everybody get Beyond the Valley.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for coming in again.
Great to see you. Thank you.
Yeah, great to see you.
Nice to see you. Nice to see you,
All right,
John.
and
Thank you,
everybody
guys.
check out Damage Report. You get it on all the platforms that we're on. And of course, members get it, tyt.com/join. You can get it live. And you could also get it on YouTube and Facebook where it's doing great. So Damage Report, check that out. Next hour, amazing. I'm gonna get super frustrated, unfortunately, about Pelosi again and this strategy of not sending the articles of impeachment forward. And there's 7 other stories that are important and maddening when we return.
That 300 million is a pretty good number, we were doing a press release on it and I got all worked up. And I said, okay, well, that's the size of the US population. You know what our next target is? The size of the entire world on the road to 6 billion. Although by the time we hit it, it'll probably be 7, maybe 8 billion.
Not a big deal. A couple of days ago on the TYT network, we passed 1 billion views.
What the hell?
What the hell?
That's a big freaking deal.
2 billion views.
What now?
Sorry.
What did we do? 2 billion?
2 billion.
They said it couldn't be done, but it was done.
We just crossed 5 billion views on YouTube.
I mean, imagine 10 years ago thinking one day.
We looked at you like, are you nuts? Young Turks crosses 6 billion views.
Young Turks has just passed another milestone, 10 billion views.
Damn.
When you choose Aspiration, you can also trust that your hard-earned money is deposited into a financial firm with a conscience. You're sending a message for change and saving yourself more than just a couple bucks along the way. With the Aspiration Spend and Save account, you'll actually pay no monthly fees. Aspiration also commits to donating 10% of every dollar of its earnings to charitable microloans for low-income Americans. And as a thank you, when you sign up with Aspiration, we'll give you a free month of TYT membership. Head to aspiration.com/TYT.
The Monsanto Corporation continues to sell an herbicide called Roundup. You should know that recent studies have linked this commercial herbicide to a significant increase in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. A diagnosis of this type of cancer can be devastating to you and your family, while Monsanto continues to profit from these sales. If you or a loved one were exposed to Roundup at work or at home and then developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, you might be entitled to financial compensation, and you have a right to take action now.
Are you a politician with a ridiculous point to make? Are you in need of a petulant, outdated way to make it? Then you'll need one of my signs. Hi, I'm Simon Simonson of Simonson Signs. We'll take the stupid, over-the-top, meaningless allegory you have and put it on foam core. So maybe someone will notice your grandstanding, because this is C-SPAN. And anything that's not people milling around in front of a running vote count is almost considered moderately entertaining. The bar is low, just like our prices. We've got plenty of designs. We also brought you Mike Lee's Tauntauns. They're tons of fun. What does this have to do with the Green New Deal? About as much as this other visual aid he used of Reagan on a T-Rex. Or is that a Velociraptor? Who cares? Who the cares? No one gives a. Call us now at Simon Simonson Signs. We'll make your stupid point stupidly for money today.
Viewers had asked for an interview with the TYT lizard. Mr. Lizard. Oh, you changed colors today. Nice. I don't even know how you feel about us. Do you even like us?
Well, you guys made me this awesome house, so I'm kind of in your debt. I was found outside on the street, and you gave me a home. Granted, it was a really crappy home for a while, but then through the power of fundraising, I became a person who has a multi-level Trump-style mansion.
You do. By the way, you've never looked better, man. Normally, you're just green or just brown, but today you're in mid-lizard, right?
I'm not very smart. I'm a lizard, so I don't know how the science works. I guess this is just my mood. It's not every day that thresholds like this are broken. I'm just so excited. I can't contain my pigmentation.
And now you're showing it off.
Yep.
Yeah, I've never seen the lizard like this before.
Drop it. All right, back on the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur, J.R. Jackson, Francesca Fiorentini is back. Francesca, you've got a special on MSNBC. How fun is that?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, Red, White, and Who.
Yes.
It's on December 29th. It's at 9 o'clock Eastern. What's it about?
It's all about healthcare. 45-minute deep dive into the current broken healthcare system, ending with an interview with none other than the political Benjamin Button, Bernie Sanders. And asking him and having him expound on ways that I don't think he always gets to in mainstream news outlets about what Medicare for All would look like and why it's time to have it. But it was fascinating to do and speak with real people, see activists on the ground who are trying to do things like expand Medicaid, which still hasn't expanded in 14 red states, right? So yeah, I'm so excited for the audience here to reconnect the cords for and find out if their parents have cable. And I say DVR and people are like, okay, old lady,
Yeah, I almost said T-Boat. Anyway, but seriously, it's wonderful to have MSNBC have real progressives like Francesca on, and in such an important topic. So make sure you check it out, December 29th, 9 o'clock Eastern, Red, White, and Who. Okay, oh wait, no, I gotta read you tweets real quick. On Twitter, Unstable Idiot says, somewhere Mark Thompson is glad about this story being highlighted on #TYT Live. So that's the pork story and how disastrous it is, how they processed it. In fact, in the member section, Sarah Wolf says, phone Mark Thompson. By the way, listen to what Sarah says. I'm another vegan he converted, and this story confirmed it was a good choice. Wow. Look at that. And by the way, guys, that's what we do here, right? So you might hear that we're right-wingers if you watch the national media. But what we actually do is we flip right-wingers into progressives all the time. And then good progressives like Sarah, we open up the idea that maybe going vegan is the right direction. And we do it through different hosts and all the different contributors. Anyway, by the way, you could help in that process. We launched this affiliate program. And we wanted to create a win-win where you guys make money, when we make money, and you spread the progressive message so that more folks like Sarah and me and others can see the light in different ways. So it's called tyt.com/win-win. And if you go there, you could become an affiliate. It's pretty easy to sign up. Everybody's had almost no problem signing up. And then you sell membership and everybody wins, okay? So check it out.
Do you get free Beyonce tickets for life?
No, but you do get cash, which you could turn into Beyonce tickets.
This is good. This is almost because I missed the window for that. Did you jump on the Beyonce free tickets for life if you go vegan or vegetarian for like even a day of the week? This is better. This is better. Obviously, this is TYT's better. Be real.
Yeah, all right.
I feel like you went for that.
Yeah, it looks like you had a lot of info on that. All right, last one is MedKitty saying, can't wait for more food recalls and deadly bacteria outbreaks from the foodborne illnesses in 2020. The government must think that we didn't have enough over the last 2 years. No, unfortunately, the main thing is the government doesn't care because it represents the donors and not the voters. All right, what's next?
Let's get it going, you guys.
Yeah, let's do it.
Of course, on Wednesday, everyone knows that President Donald Trump was impeached by the House. But if you watch Fox News, you may get a different idea. So this latest attempt to coddle Donald Trump's ego to make sure he isn't too freaked out by the whole process, it all was born off of a Bloomberg op-ed by Harvard Law professor Noah Feldman. A part of that whole thing, one of the things he said was impeachment, as contemplated by the Constitution, does not consist merely of the vote by the House, but of the process of sending the articles to the Senate for trial, which we all know. He goes on to say, if the House does not communicate its impeachment to the Senate, it hasn't actually impeached the president. If the articles are not transmitted, Trump could legitimately say he wasn't truly impeached at all. So he's getting this because, of course, let's go to the video of Nancy Pelosi the night of, right after impeachment articles were passed, both were passed, and she had this to say.
We have legislation approved by the Rules Committee that will enable us to decide how we will send over the articles of impeachment. We cannot name managers until we see what the process is on the Senate side. And I would hope that that will be soon, as we did with our legislation, our Resolution 660, to describe what the process would be. So far, we haven't seen anything that looks fair to us. So hopefully it will be fair.
So because of her delay and wanting to make sure things were going to be going a certain way based off of what Majority Leader Mitch McConnell had to say, this op-ed was written by Noah Feldman, and Fox News jumped right on it as their latest approach to try and figure out a way to discredit this entire process. Let's go to Laura Ingraham and see what she had to say.
I think one can make a fairly decent argument that the president wasn't really even impeached, at least not yet. Now, why am I saying that? Because Nancy and the gang ran out of town without even naming impeachment managers and without sending the articles to the Senate. You know who else is saying this? The Democrats' own lawyer. Again, I repeat, this is from their lawyer. Last night, the Angle explained that Pelosi's stall was just the latest sign that the Democrats were never really serious about any of this. In the end, it was a pretend impeachment.
A pretend impeachment, that was Thursday night. So of course, this morning, Fox and Friends has their opportunity. Let's see what they had to say. It might be a surprise.
There you've got the word from a constitutional scholar who appeared on behalf of the Democrats, and he says, you know, the Democrats did what they did, but until they hit send, he's not impeached.
Well, that's true. Until you send your term paper in, you haven't sent it into the professor. I mean, so the banner right here should read Trump actually not impeached.
Actually not. So everyone's who's been saying there's an asterisk next to his presidency, been celebrating his impeachment, including Nancy Pelosi. Noah Feldman is a professor at Harvard University. He's a Democrat. He is an expert. He was calling for impeachment years before the Ukraine call. And here we are now with him saying that Democrats have skipped town.
The president has not been impeached.
Interesting. Maybe Nancy has some buyer's remorse.
Maybe.
Or maybe they don't know what they're doing.
Well, I
know. So one more part. So I read the entire op-ed from Noah Feldman, and from how they took it from here, there's one more part that they neglected to look at. Noah Feldman goes on to say, the Constitution does not say how fast our articles must go to the Senate. Crazy, it's been like 2 days. Some modest delay is not inconsistent with the Constitution or how both chambers usually work. Man, they didn't say that part. I wonder why.
Yeah, I hear you. And so I want to give you that context and nuance first, and then say that it doesn't really matter because Pelosi's 100% bungling this. And I think it's the wrong strategy, and it's leading to this, and it's confusing the hell out of people. So on the technicalities, the House, Noah Feldman explains, the House has voted to impeach. In his opinion, he isn't impeached, that's the past tense, until the articles go to the Senate. But so they have already voted to impeach, but he has not been impeached until it goes to the Senate. But that's his theory. Now he's a scholar, and it's a good and interesting theory. I don't necessarily even disagree. But it is a unique theory. I don't mean unique that nobody else holds it. I mean that it's creative, let's put it that way. Because that's not what the Constitution says. The Constitution does not say you must send it over the Senate, otherwise you are not impeached. It just says the House impeaches and the Senate convicts. That's it. And the House has the whole authority to impeach, which it could actually be literally interpreted as he's already impeached because the House has sole authority on that. And the Senate has sole authority on conviction. So, you know what, as I said it out loud, I don't agree with Noah Feldman. Yes, he's a bigger scholar than I am on it. But the fact that we're even having this conversation shows you part of the reason why Pelosi's wrong on her political strategy. I'll get back to that.
I disagree. I think her strategy is great because I know exactly when she's going to deliver those articles of impeachment. Christmas morning, come on. That is such a good move. Come on, Pelosi, Nancy, I know you watch TYT. Christmas morning, baby. You might, after morning mass, you send them over, open it up, just, that's beautiful. I think that's great. But I do, this is leading me to be like, wait, what? Wait, huh? I think it is leading to a little bit more confusion than it needs to, especially when we know what most likely will happen, even if the Senate has already made up its mind. But I do think though that like Noah Feldman and Fox and Friends and Laura are picking up on this technicality that is also ridiculous. Like, It's like when you win, like when you have one more card in Uno, but you are about to say Uno, but you don't say it yet. Like that's what's going on right. They're about to say Uno.
Yeah, oh, that's such a great
they're just
analogy.
like-
Right, does anyone?
I was,
No, you didn't say it. Okay,
just
pick up a card, pick up a card, pick up another impeachment.
Yeah, how long is that delay supposed to be? So I mean, I guess the question becomes: does anyone believe that she's not going to at all? I don't think that.
No,
she's gonna
there's
hold on
some
to it
chance.
indefinitely. And then what reason would that be? Especially since this has become a needling process, where Mitch McConnell will say something that's senseless and say, "This is what we're going to do because I said so," and then no matter how blatantly against normalcy it is, he'll do it anyway because he wants to either needle someone or change the narrative. She's attempting to flip it back on its head. The problem with that is, and I'm seeing what you're saying a little bit, Jake. The problem with that is that most people aren't watching it as closely as those of us are. So when they hear that she's delaying it, they'll go, well, I thought she liked it. And that's where Republicans can pounce in and say crazy things. Let's hear what Trump had to say about it.
Tell us, what does it feel like to be the third president in US history to be impeached?
Well, I don't feel like I'm being impeached because it's a hoax, it's a setup, it's a horrible thing they did. They happened to have a small majority and they took that small majority and they forced people. And they said, oh, I watched Pelosi out there saying, oh no, we don't want to talk to anybody. They put the arm on everybody. They tried to get them to do what they had to do. Many of those people were like Jeff, where they didn't want to vote that way. But it doesn't feel, to me, it doesn't feel like impeachment. Last night I said it, and I'll tell you, I was up there and I was thinking about it. I actually said it. It doesn't feel like impeachment.
It doesn't feel like impeachment. So the White House overall took this narrative, and they would, well, also as part of another Bloomberg article, will point out the approach now the White House is taking. Maybe they listened to Laura Ingram's show, maybe they watched Fox and Friends this morning, but they have a different approach now. Lawyers close to the president are exploring whether the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's decision to temporarily withhold articles of impeachment from the Senate could mean that the president hasn't actually been impeached. Where'd they get the idea from? The argument is part of an effort by the White House and Senate Republicans to maximize their leverage as lawmakers debate when and how to conduct a trial on charges that the president abused his power to solicit an investigation. And we know the rest of that happened with Joe Biden. So it's become a political game of which way you can get the public to view what's happening. Nancy Pelosi is betting that they're gonna go her way, and the president and the White House are betting that it'll go their way.
Yeah.
As usual.
No.
So it's a matter of who can get this to not seem as confusing to people who aren't paying attention 100% of the time.
No, I know, but that's totally the Democrats' fault because look, the guy committed 5 different crimes, but instead of charging him with crimes, which is in the Constitution, high crimes and misdemeanors, including one of the ones he committed, bribery. It's one of the very few crimes listed in the Constitution. You could say bribery for the quid pro quo. You could say campaign finance violations for asking a foreign government for assistance for the hush money payments, and I can go on, and I have. But instead of doing that, they made it vague, an abuse of power. And now I see all over the reaction online, including from independents, going, oh, I guess he didn't commit a crime. Damn it! God, they're so bad at this. The Democrats, that's giant problem number 1. Giant problem number 2 is when they don't send it, it sends the optics of, oh, their case must be weak. They're so worried about their case, they're not even sending it to the Senate. No, send it, hashtag send it. So, and then now the third problem, for what? Well, what's the play here? And this is what I said on day 1. So, and now it's playing out. Schumer and Pelosi are trying to negotiate with Mitch McConnell on witnesses. And he said, well, I want some witnesses and et cetera. And of course, the Republicans then turn around and go, wait a minute, you control the House, you had all this time to call any witness you like, why didn't you call them? So because now the Democrats are trying to get Bolton and Mulvaney and they didn't call them, and they're trying to get them called in the Senate. And the Republicans go, why would we do that? You didn't even call them. Now, I know why, don't get me wrong, that's stuck in the courts, but they're not going to win that argument. And it makes them look more weak, more ineffectual, which then leads to Mitch McConnell saying this, quote, I admit, I'm not sure what leverage there is in refraining from sending us something we do not want. Alas, if they can figure that out, they can explain. And it pains me deeply to say this, McConnell is right about that. What leverage do you have? It's like, oh, so you don't want to impeach the president? Great, deal, we don't impeach him.
But I'm wondering, I'm curious, like, because for me, I don't see any way the Democrats could play this any better than that. And I think that
really
you saying that like,
great, I got away.
Well, yeah, well, like what would be the alternative if they're not? I mean, because if they, I think yes, withholding the articles to try and leverage witnesses. We know Republicans will probably, even if they call, I don't think they're going to cave to that. I don't think they're going to actually be able to get them to have witnesses, call witnesses. And if they do somehow call witnesses, it still won't matter, as we've seen over the last weeks and weeks of this impeachment hearing in all the committees, right? So, and we saw the vote completely. For Republicans, completely right down party lines. 0 were in favor of either article of impeachment. So I get why it's dumb.
No.
But I'm like, so then, well, how could they play it even better?
So here's how you do it. Okay, first of all, you charge them with the 5 crimes initially, and you say over and over again, you send not 1 or 2, not just Adam Schiff, you send 10, 20 Congress people on national TV and talking to the reporters, constantly saying crime, 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 history of criminality, crime, crime, crime. God, you're so bad at this. You're terrible at this. Abuse of power, obstruction, vague, and you run from the cameras. Okay, so that mistake at this point is already done. There's nothing we can do about it. That ship has sailed, okay? It's an unbelievable mistake. Okay, secondly, now that we're here, you send it right away. What is this delay? Is maniacal. It serves no purpose. You have no leverage, and all it's doing is creating talking points and optical wins for the Republicans and for Donald Trump. Now they're going around high-fiving that he didn't even get impeached. You suck at this. Anyway, so what do? You send it right away and you go, oh, I can't wait for the Republicans to vote on this. Okay, every one of you, I want you to politically, look, for the country, I want you to convict him, okay? But politically, yeah, vote no, I can't wait. I'm gonna make ads out of it. The guy's incredibly unpopular, he's a lifelong criminal. Vote to protect Donald Trump, I dare you. See, do it that way, you do strength. Instead of like, I don't know if I'm gonna even send it. I don't know if I'm gonna send it, I don't know. Oh my God, the Republicans are gonna win. I know they're gonna win, they're gonna win. I mean, they're gonna acquit him. I'm so afraid that they're gonna acquit him. If you're afraid they're gonna acquit him, why'd you do this in the first place? Did you not think out anything? No, you want, look, politically, it's okay if they acquit him. That's when you bust them, those, not Trump, you go and vote, you use that against Susan Collins. Trump is incredibly unpopular in Maine. You use it against Cory Gardner. Do you know how politics is played at all? At all? Do you know one scintilla of politics? So you show strength, and the last part's more controversial, but McConnell will never, ever give you anything you want. So if I was them, I would literally do a fake out and I'd be like, oh, I don't want any witnesses. I want a super speedy trial.
Right.
Because I want those Republican senators on the record supporting a criminal, okay? Then McConnell might go, wait a minute, maybe we should have a longer trial where we have witnesses that show that we're not voting for a criminal, right? And then yes, then you get your witnesses. That's your only hope. Because if you ask McConnell without any leverage for something he doesn't want to give you, you won't get it.
I definitely agree with that. I think baiting them into agreeing that maybe pulling some witnesses could be good for them, or even like counsel, right? Like having Trump's legal team there, even though McConnell has said there will be no daylight between Senate Republicans and the legal defense team. But still, you're right. Like baiting them, being like, I don't even need witnesses, but maybe you should call them witnesses.
Can I give some logical, at least some logical reason for the leverage, at least what may be perceived as her leverage in it. They want to hurry up and they do want to hurry up and dismiss the charges. McConnell said he wants to hurry up and do it. He said that already, he admitted that. Trump said, I'm not sure, I actually want to call the whistleblower because he's obsessed with him. So there's a bit of a split already between those two. This is, I think, can only guess. The thought process from Nancy Pelosi is, well, the messaging has always been that we're just pushing things too fast and all that. So she thinks she's gonna slow down and allow them to continue to have their little infighting, which of course isn't being publicized. And then maybe I can stretch out long enough that Trump is gonna want this to really happen and McConnell's not gonna want this to happen. And at some point, which actually will never happen, is they're gonna change these rules to make sure we get some of our witnesses. And that actually is not gonna happen. That's the bad play. But she sees a bit of light between them, the two of them, and she's trying to push the wedge.
Then Nancy Pelosi, Steny Hoyer, Chuck Schumer, anybody in Democratic leadership, you want to bet? Do you want to bet that this winds up hurting the Democratic Party, hurting the cause of impeachment, and that McConnell and Trump do not separate on this issue while you're waiting? No, while you're waiting, they gain leverage, they gain strength. They all unite and say, ha ha, the case sucked. That's why they're not sending it.
But Jen,
I guarantee it. I'll take anybody.
I think you're buying into their logic. There's ridiculous logic. I think in the minds of most Americans, I get that, like, yes, the first article was vague and it could have been more specific, but we've had this hammered into our brains for so long, and the letter and the transcript proves it. There was a quid pro quo, a favor asked of a foreign government in exchange for help with an election, right? Like, obviously, like that's so obvious to, I think, many Americans who've been just even minimally following this. So I get that it could have been specific, but I do think that the bribery is still there in the minds of the public. And I disagree that, I think if, let's say they never send it. Let's say they never send it.
They're thinking about it
in my
because they're
mind,
maniacal.
In my mind, from a media standpoint, seriously though, like, I think we all want to talk about issues. I think we all want.
No, guys.
No, but let me just finish. I do think that the longer this impeachment goes, and especially if he is exonerated by the Republican-controlled Senate, like that is then. That's going to catapult him. That his re-election bid is way stronger.
Impeachment in the first place.
I disagree with that. I totally disagree with that.
Guys, this is total fail. 100% fail.
No, because I think if we're still talking about the impeachment, come let's say summer.
But we're not going to be talking about it. Here, I'll lay out markers. This is what I do. I'll tell you ahead of time, and you'll see that
the Senate could slow walk it however they want to slow walk it.
Look, guys, I'll tell you right now. Every day that they delay, we'll lose support. Every day. And within a week, within 2 weeks, if they wait that long, it'll get mission critical. The support will erode so much. Pro-impeachment will be down to in the 30s when it was at 51%.
But the votes already happened. Okay. I mean, I feel like you're buying into that technicality.
No, the 51% want to impeach and remove. Look, I know regular Americans, and maybe I'm wrong, and you guys get to see with your own eyes. Regular folks sitting at home going, why aren't they sending it? They don't see this machinations and BS maneuvers and maybe I'll get leverage. They're like, what the hell? They impeached him. Why aren't they sending it to the Senate? I guess it must be a terrible case. I guarantee you that's what they're thinking. You're gonna see, they're gonna lose leverage every single day until they nearly ruin this thing. By the time they send it, it'll be so unpopular, they'll put us in an unbelievable hole. Watch it, mark my words. In a panic, they'll turn around.
What is best case scenario? You just laid it out. They immediately send it, and then what?
There's no way he's gonna get removed.
Yeah,
you think
he's not
if
gonna get
they did
removed.
this the other way, suddenly the Senate would go,
guys, look, it's not like that. I think, oh my God, hey, if we have a good enough case, Mitch McConnell will find his principles, and John Cornyn will vote the right way based on the facts.
We know that.
No, of course not. No, the idea is to put pressure on the Republican senators. If it looks like you have an overwhelming case and they're protecting a crook, they're more likely to lose their swing seats. And then the Democrats
They're not gonna flip. They're not gonna
flip. I don't want them to flip. Guys, you're not getting it. I want them to vote for Trump so that they lose. Think for a second. Susan Collins, if she votes for Trump, she's gonna lose. Let her do that. Instead, they're finding a way to bungle it so that by the time Susan Collins votes no and votes with Trump, she's not gonna lose because you drove down the popularity of impeachment. I guarantee you, this is an incredibly dumb idea.
I need a play-by-play of your 7D chess. I need a manual.
You'll see it. You'll see it on live time as it plays out. You will see exactly what I just told you will happen over the next couple of weeks.
I know we've gone way over, so I won't go further. But there's more gray area, I think, than what you're saying, because the only thing that has ever pushed anyone that supports these Republicans is Republicans saying something bad. If they say, I'm gonna start believing these Democrats, therefore I'm gonna vote for Republican, it just doesn't happen. The last thing that any Republican said bad about Trump is because he went after John Dingell. And then they were like,
yeah,
man, this guy's a horrible person.
They're not gonna vote against them. That's not the point.
No, I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about voters.
You're setting
voters
them
are not gonna flip on these
but
guys.
But the Republican voters aren't gonna flip. You're trying to get independence. You're trying to get independence. The Republican voters are in a cult. They're never, if they have a red hat on, they're in a cult. They're not gonna vote against Donald Trump or Susan Collins. You're trying to get independence, and this is a strategy meant to absolutely, it will backfire and you will lose independence. So all right, look, the last thing I'll say is Nancy Pelosi is thoroughly incompetent. This is a massive mistake. Now, I'm saying it ahead of time. If I'm wrong, you'll see it with your own eyes, and I'll come back out and go, wow, I didn't expect that, man. They waited 2 weeks, and then the Republicans crumbled, and they said, oh, I'll give you whatever witness you want. And impeachment got more popular, and it cost the Republicans. And you'll see it with your own eyes, and I'll say it. But it won't. The opposite will happen. And when it does, and when I'm proven right, you'll see it with your own eyes. And you know what the national media will say? They'll say the same thing they're saying today. HuffPost has a ridiculous article. They're supposed to be progressive, kissing Nancy Pelosi's ass. Oh, what a brilliant master legislator, bungling this away, brilliant. And they'll say it again after she bungles it. And after you see it with your own eyes, after she destroys this process, they'll still kiss her ass because they are craven and they want access to power and they totally pervert reality. But you will see reality over the next couple of weeks. This is a terrible idea, mark my words.
Okay.
All right, we gotta go, guys. Sorry, I got worked up.
That's great.
I love this exchange of ideas. I love it.
Because it's more, yeah, go.
All right, we'll be back.
That 300 million is a pretty good number, we were doing a press release on it and I got all worked up and I said, okay, well, that's the size of the US population. You know what our next target is? The size of the entire world on the road to 6 billion. Although by the time we hit it, it'll probably be 7, maybe 8 billion.
Not a big deal. A couple of days ago on the TYT network, we passed 1 billion views.
What the hell?
What the hell?
That's a big freaking deal.
2 billion views.
What now?
Sorry.
What did we do? 2 billion?
2 billion.
They said it couldn't be done, but it was done.
We just crossed 5 billion views on YouTube.
I mean, imagine 10 years ago thinking, one day.
We looked at you like, are you nuts?
Young Turks crosses 6 billion views.
Young Turks has just passed another milestone, 10 billion views.
Damn.
When you choose aspiration, you can also trust that your hard-earned money is deposited into a financial firm with a conscience. You're sending a message for change and saving yourself more than just a couple bucks along the way. With the Aspiration Spend and Save account, you'll actually pay no monthly fees. Aspiration also commits to donating 10% of every dollar of its earnings to charitable microloans for low-income Americans. And as a thank you, when you sign up with Aspiration, we'll give you a free month of TYT membership. Head to aspiration.com/TYT.
The Monsanto Corporation continues to sell an herbicide called Roundup. You should know that recent studies have linked this commercial herbicide to a significant increase in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. A diagnosis of this type of cancer can be devastating to you and your family, while Monsanto continues to profit from these sales. If you or a loved one were exposed to Roundup at work or at home and then developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, you might be entitled to financial compensation, and you have a right to take action now.
Are you a politician with a ridiculous point to make? Are you in need of a petulant, outdated way to make it? Then you'll need one of my signs. Hi, I'm Simon Simonson of Simonson Signs. We'll take the stupid, over-the-top, meaningless allegory you have and put it on foam core. So maybe someone will notice your grandstanding, because this is C-SPAN. And anything that's not people milling around in front of a running vote count is almost considered moderately entertaining. The bar is low, just like our prices. We've got plenty of designs. We also brought you Mike Lee's Tauntauns. They're tons of fun. What does this have to do with the Green New Deal? About as much as this other visual aid he used of Reagan on a T-Rex. Or is that a Velociraptor? Who cares? Who the cares? No one gives a. Call us now at Simon Simonson Signs. We'll make your stupid point stupidly for money today.
Viewers had asked for an interview with the TYT lizard. Mr. Lizard. Oh, you changed colors today. Nice. I don't even know how you feel about us. Do you even like us?
Well, you guys made me this awesome house, so I'm kind of in your debt. I was found outside on the street, and you gave me a home. Granted, it was a really crappy home for a while, but then through the power of fundraising, I became a person who has a multi-level Trump-style mansion.
You do. By the way, you never looked better, man. Normally, you're just green or just brown, but today you're in mid-lizard, right?
I'm not very smart. I'm a lizard, so I don't know how the science works. I guess this is just my mood. It's not every day that thresholds like this are broken. I'm just so excited. I can't contain my pigmentation.
And now you're showing it off.
Yep.
Look, I've never seen the lizard like this before.
Back on the Young Turks, Cowardly Viking writes in, Francesca on the show, Merry Christmas to me. That's fun. The Mathematician writes on Twitter, our 2 power panel is my girl Francesca Fiorentini and my man JR.
Hey.
I'm gonna love this hour. All right, thank you guys.
Wow, you got omitted, bro.
Well, that's all right. Here, I'll read one on my behalf. I bathe in a very stable genius's tears, writes in. Now back to the member section. I have to agree with Cenk's theory about what Pelosi might be doing. She will delay until February, which will potentially hurt Sanders and Warren presidential run. Ooh, that would be devastating. That's a lose-lose for progressives. Congressional baseball fan says, ironic, isn't it? Whether you think the president is impeached depends on the meaning of what is. Oh, that is ironic.
So
nice job, nice job. I love our viewers. And last one, Eddie O'Neill says, this is what makes the Young Turks unique. You won't see these types of arguments on other mainstream media channels. Kudos to Cenk for holding the expletives back. Like, I got a low bar. They're like, he didn't curse, nice job. But Eddie, thank you, we appreciate it. I love the diversity of ideas here, no matter how much people take it out of context. Okay, all right, what's next?
Continuing on with the craziness that's going on. Donald Trump has proudly and officially announced the newest member of the Republican Party, that man you see right there, Jeff Van Drew from New Jersey, from Congress. He announced this deal in the Oval Office just yesterday, and this is how it went down.
Jeff Van Drew, highly respected. In fact, I didn't know as a Democrat how you could have won in that district. I know the district very well, but that is a great tribute to you. But Jeff will be joining the Republican Party, and we were very fortunate. He voted our way yesterday, as you probably know, and we had a totally unified party. I don't think there's ever been a time where the Republican Party was so united. But Jeff will be joining the Republican Party, and I really, to me, it's a very exciting announcement.
It's very exciting because let's go to some of the parameters behind how he did it. It had been floated for a while that Jeff Van Drew was going to switch from Democrat to Republican, but he waited until after this and the impeachment vote in the House, of course. So that meeting in the Oval Office came one day after the House voted to nearly strictly around party lines approve 2 articles of impeachment against Trump for abuse of power and obstruction of Congress, as we already know. So Van Drew voted as a Democrat on Wednesday. He was one of 3 Democrats who defected and also voted against both one or both of the articles. Republicans were unanimous, of course, something Trump has cheered on. So when this happens with Jeff Van Drew, he's cheering even more. So Jeff Van Drew was asked Wednesday why he was remaining a Democrat just for that vote on impeachment, and he said the reason was he was switching parties. He told The Hill that he felt it was appropriate that he voted as a Democrat. Now, what appropriate exactly means is that he gets the chance to give one more win to Trump before he goes and pledges this loyalty. I want to go to that pledge really fast just now. Here's Jeff Van Drew talking about how much he loves Trump.
I guess what I say is I believe that this is just a better fit for me. This is who I am. It's who I always was, but there was more tolerance of moderate Democrats, of blue dog Democrats, of conservative Democrats, and I think that's going away. 2 more things I want to say. 1, you have my undying support.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And always.
And by the way, same way.
Okay, undying support. Okay.
It's so Godfather.
Yeah, it really is. It is. It's a guy, a captain moving from one mob family to another.
Yes.
Where you have my undying support, okay? Don Corleone Trump, okay? I pledge my loyalty to you.
For you,
okay. Okay.
I want a red tie.
Okay.
Long red tie.
All right, so two things here. One is, Mehdi Hassan made the best point on this. He's like, you'll always have my undying support, said the guy who just switched parties. Not a great track record on undying support and staying with what you said earlier. So perhaps a little note of caution is necessary there. But to me, actually, the most important part was when he said about how he's switching over to a Republican, and he said, you saw it there. He said, it's who I always was. Yeah. And that's actually true. See, these blue dog conservative Democrats that Democratic leadership caters to nonstop, they were always Republicans. They vote Republican, they are Republican. They were using the label Democrat to trick people into voting for them. And so that's the only thing. But since Washington is all about partisanship and it's all about team loyalty, when he was a Democrat voting the same exact way with his Republican buddies, they were like, no, he has a D on his helmet. Nope, Democrat. Hey, progressives, don't challenge a guy like Jeff Van Drew. How dare you, our beloved colleague, Jeff Van Drew. He's such a wonderful Democrat. He votes with the Republicans, but he's a wonderful Democrat. He votes with the corporate interests, he votes with donors, but how dare you, he has a D on his helmet. Now they're all super mad at him. The same votes, the votes didn't change at all, okay? But now that he switched helmets and he has an R on his helmet, all the corporate Democrats are like, oh, how dare he, what a traitor, what a scoundrel. The D is now an R. Oh my God, that matters. No, all these conservative Democrats are in fact Republicans.
Right.
If you notice, I'm sorry, Francesca, you're gonna get to that, I promise. Interrupt you, Doug. But this is the thing, he's talking about how the party has switched, and that's why he had to go ahead and become a Republican full-fledged, because there's this progressive lean that's coming from now a few members coming into the party, and he's uncomfortable with that now. Because we had this constant, as far as Democrats, there was this constant catering to like, we have to make sure we have this legitimacy towards being able to appeal to Republicans. I've said it so many times, when's the last time you've heard Republicans say, man, 2018, we got beat in the House. We better make sure we go ahead and appeal to more progressives because we're gonna keep losing. No, they don't say that. Justin Amash had one thing to finally say about the president. He didn't leave that party, they kicked his off of all of these committees, and he said, I guess I gotta go now and become an independent because they don't like me anymore. Jeff Van Drew was not kicked out of the party. He said, I'm gonna leave now because you guys, with the 5 of you, have gone too far to the left.
Yeah.
Justin Amash got shoved. That's what the Republicans
and I think, and not to go back to the impeachment a little bit, but I do want to say that just because Democrats aren't good at claiming our victories doesn't mean we haven't won. And so, that's a perfect example of the 2018 midterms that it should signify to the other party that, geez, we should probably, listen up and watch our backs, and maybe they're coming for us, and maybe we should cool it on some of these issues or try to work bipartisan. But they don't do that. But I just think that with the impeachment, we have to remember none of this would be possible had voters not come out in record numbers with young people, people of color, people who traditionally in a midterm might not actually find and have the time to go to the polls, right? And that this entire process was thanks to the fact that there was a majority of Democrats in those committees. And so I don't want to just, again, I think we sort of get wrapped up in the impeachment kind of belonging to Pelosi or belonging to these, centrist Democrats. And I just want to remind us all that we came out to vote, we came out to mobilize, and folks around this country. So let's not lose sight of that. In terms of this, what a time to become a Republican from a Democrat. Well, now that you're just openly calling Mexicans rapists, I'm in. It's
it's amazing.
Why not join the Republican Party? I don't know, in the 80s, I might get it, and in the 70s for sure, or even, George Bush Sr., who was I believe in amnesty for immigrants, but now it's just yeah, now that the hoods are on, let's go for it.
Or maybe the hoods are off.
Or the hoods are off, exactly, unclear.
So also, as we looked at Jeff Van Drew talking about his pledging his loyalty, this was actually the best part of it. So Catherine Falders, a reporter for ABC with the reports on the White House and Capitol Hill, she tweeted that she spoke to Jeff Van Drew right after, and this is what she had to say. She goes, just ask Van Drew about this, about him pledging his loyalty, by the way. This is the loyalty. She connected the video. I don't know if I said, did I say undying? This is Van Drew talking. I don't think it was undying. I usually don't speak that way. I said, I think you have my support, and he does. And then she connected the video, of course.
He sounds like me when I make fun of people who are backpedaling. Did I say undying? I don't normally say undying. I don't think I said undying. Did I say it? Because I thought I didn't say it, but I don't normally talk that way.
I meant
literally what he said.
Undead is what I meant.
It's weird, in the community, there's folks who say the devil made me do it. Yeah. When he shook his hands and he sold his soul, and then he blacked out because the devil had control of him. And he's
yeah, of course.
Did I say undying? Did I get on the
I was
knee?
speaking in tongues. Weren't we all speaking in tongues? I didn't understand a word the president was saying.
Super last thing. If he switched back tomorrow to Democrat, the Democratic Party would take him.
Sure.
Isn't that sad? No. You vote with the Republicans, you support Donald Trump. You're not a Democrat. The Democratic Party is supposed to be the progressive party, not the corporate party. So bye, Felicia. But they'd take him like the next day, and they'd brag about it.
They'd say,
That's
"We
right.
got a Republican back."
Yeah. All right. Okay.
Are we breaking?
Before I say anything worse. Okay, let's go to break. And there's amazing stories left. We'll be right back.
People work hard for what they have, and if you want more, you gotta do it yourself. Stock stories bring headlines to life in an instant, whether you work on Wall Street or in Wichita. Stock report cards and professional analyst buy and sell ratings help gut check your thought process. Buy stock, take profits, and manage risk. And the Idea Feed is your daily one-stop investment shop with videos that unpack today's money-moving headlines in under 3 minutes, because you need ideas, not lectures. And live in-app chat from when you want to talk to someone, but you don't actually want to talk. So what'd you think? With unlimited commission-free stock trades and great ideas from real traders. Visit doe.com/TYT.
People still don't know what the word feminist actually means. Not even that, people are still angered by the word.
People think feminist is a bad word, but it's not.
There are gradations, there are different waves. The people who are against gender equality love to use like militant feminists as the representatives of all feminists. It's untrue.
I don't know why you'd be threatened by strong women unless you were an incredibly weak man. If you don't have equal rights, or you're not treated the same way, well, wouldn't you be angry?
The Monsanto Corporation continues to sell a herbicide called Roundup, but you should know that that herbicide is a potential killer. Recent studies have linked Roundup to significant increases in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. That's a cancer that can be devastating to you and the people you love. While Roundup continues to cause cancer, Monsanto continues to make huge profits from the sale of Roundup. They will not take it off the market. If you or a loved one are exposed to Roundup at work or home and then developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, you may be entitled to financial compensation, and it's important for you to take action now and hold Monsanto accountable.
Cenk Uygur is not here today, which means that I will be able to talk during the show. Now,
We'll see.
Poor Cenk, under the bus.
My God, if Jesus came back, how much would the Republicans hate him? Now you have to give away all of your possessions to the poor. Steve King would be like, oh, Weezy.
Cenk is oddly, scarily competitive.
Oh, it's insane. I play basketball against him. It's just like, how are you good at this?
The liberal mom says, Mark Thompson, have you ever thought about doing one of those tapes that soothe people to sleep? Like Mark Thompson reads the phone book. I'd buy it.
If you'll buy it, I'll do it.
Emilio D'Amelio writes in, John, you are so thick. I love you. That's what he wrote.
Pork Chop Express writes in and says John Idarola needs a new jacket.
Whoa.
Those 24-inch pythons are about to burst out of his sleeve.
You know, the two people here said that their moms were both in love with you over Beauty and the Beast.
That's an improvement. I usually get grandmothers.
The Hour of Fire is brought to you by Brooke, and Brooke.
Yes, Brooke's got it.
Okay.
Take it.
All
you
right.
guys know I really like compliments.
Charlie Turk.
No, wait a minute, don't you dare.
Chemical castration when we return from the break.
All right, so that's it. We will settle it.
I want to see this.
Did Anna comment on my tan yet? No, she hasn't. Scandal at TYT.
You're a good boss.
But Anna did say that I come in here today with a fresh mind. That's all I'm about. I'm about a fresh mind.
I can't with you right now.
She just can't. She can't, but nonetheless, we have to for another 3 hours. I'm back, baby. Let's rip in the Republicans. See, don't miss the live show.
That's great.
Tell people, if you remember, you get the whole live show whenever you want, because this stuff doesn't go into any of the clips. All right, back in the Young Turks, a couple of fun ones. Unstable Semi-Genius writes in, now that's a pocket square, LOL. That was our graphic for Jeff Van Drew, who I always want to call Jeff Van Gundy. Which says about Van Drew and Trump, Jesus, get a room. I stole McConnell's shell writes in, Francesca, freaking hilarious, you give me the chuckles. And Mrs. Schwinn on Twitter says, oh my God, look at Jeff's tie. Did Trump give it to him and tie it for him? Okay, I was thinking about his tie too, with a really long red tie. That's your undying loyalty to Trump right there in that tie. And the pocket square. All right.
It's a pocket pyramid.
All right, JR, you're up.
Sure. Recently defeated an unpopular governor of Kentucky, Matt Bevin. On his way out the door, he decided to go ahead and pardon many convicted criminals, many convicted of heinous crimes. But even with that, one particular stood out. It was Micah Schodel, who was convicted of sexual assault, rape of a 9-year-old girl, amongst other things. Let's go to some of what happened. Matt Bevin pardoned Micah, who was convicted last year of raping a 9-year-old child in Kenton County. He was sentenced last year to 23 years in prison. Bevin wrote that Schodel was convicted of a heinous crime based, quote, based only on testimony that was not supported in any way by physical evidence. He added that the case was investigated and prosecuted in a manner that was sloppy at best. I do not believe that the charges against Mr. Schodel are true. Well, Matt Bevin also went on a radio show to explain himself further and the basis behind what he had to say. Let's hear what he had to say there.
A child rapist, though, that is the lowest form of human life.
Absolute scum of the earth. You know, for people who have raped children, anybody who volitionally assaults another person, and any kind of a sexual assault in particular, and especially on a child, to me is reprehensible. To assume, however, that everybody who has ever been accused of this and even convicted of this has in fact done this is a big assumption to make. It really is. This was the second one. This is a guy named Micah Schodel, I don't even know how to pronounce his last name. Let me tell you about this fellow. He was accused of sexually assaulting repeatedly for over the course of almost 2 years, well over a year, every single Wednesday, I believe it was, repeatedly sexually assaulting her and her sister, this girl claimed. She said that every week he came in and sexually assaulted me and my sister. Well, the sister, who was in the same room every time, denied all of it. These girls both were examined medically. They were examined physically. There was zero evidence. Zero. Both their hymens were intact. This is perhaps more specific than people would want, but trust me, if you have been repeatedly sexually violated as a small child by an adult, there are going to be repercussions of that physically and medically. There was zero evidence of that.
Matt Bevin, trust me. Trust me.
The new TI.
Yeah, so look guys, you think it can't get worse. Wait till you find out why he might have done the pardons. Okay, that's a bombshell that's gonna come in a minute, okay? But I wanna prove, look, we don't need, he's a monster. I mean, stands on its own. But nonetheless, we're gonna give you even more facts to show how ridiculous he is. The Kentucky medical examiner, Dr. George Nichols, says he clearly doesn't know medicine and anatomy, and he also doesn't know the law. And he was so mad, he said, fortunately, I didn't have to report to that a-hole, okay? So the medical examiner's like, no, that doesn't work, but hold on, even more. Forensic Science International says, quote, a survey of pediatric child abuse rape cases indicated that only 2.1% of subjects examined had visible lesions on the hymen. In other words, in 98% of the case, the hymen is still intact. And this idiot monster goes on and says, oh, what? So what? The hymen wasn't broken. She's 9 years old. She's 9 years old. Why did you do this? So let's get to why you did this. It wasn't one guy. If he thought for whatever reason he got obsessed with that case and he thought he was innocent, whatever, there's no excuse for it, right? No, he pardoned 428 people. Rapists, child rapists, murderers on his way out. What the hell is he doing? And so these are the Republicans who claim to be tough on crime. If a Democrat did this, the whole country would explode. Now, so what could possibly be his motivation? There's two possibilities. Because I was reading through this going, Jesus, I've never seen anything this monstrous. So one is, it's kind of like, oh yeah, you voted me out of office. Why don't I let all the rapists and murderers go?
Deal with this.
Like a Bane move out of Batman.
Yep, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, but no, it's worse. So it turns out, at least for one of the guys, Patrick Baker, who committed murder, robbery, impersonating a peace officer, tampering with physical evidence. By the way, these people are all convicted, okay? He'd only served 2 years of his 19-year sentence. Why is he out? Well, probably a coincidence, but Baker's family members raised $21,500 at a 2018 fundraiser for Matt Bevin to alleviate debt incurred in his first gubernatorial campaign. Other family members also made direct personal donations during and after the event. Just when you thought catering to donors could not get any more craven and immoral, Matt Bevin says, no, wait, I will let murderers and child rapists go free if some of their family members are my donors. Wow.
Wait, did they pool the money from the 428 people who are being pardoned?
So it's
to donate to Matt Bevin? Cause like, hats off to those total criminals. But like, that's so bizarre.
No, but look, we've gotten used to corporations bribing our politicians, but the national media doesn't call it bribery. They're like, no, ExxonMobil was doing charity, right? And by the way, a lot of times they break the law, then they give money to politicians so they can get away with it. The people who invented that are the Koch brothers. They had been stealing oil from Native Americans, and when they got caught, they realized, oh, I'll just buy the politicians. And they bought a senator from one of the Midwestern states, and I remember Kansas because the senator they bought at the time was Bob Dole, and those senators happened to dismiss the case. So criminal corporate interests have been buying our politicians for a long time. So then criminals, it was only a matter of time before they're like, oh, we could bribe anybody, and they'll do whatever we want. So hey, our family member murdered people. Let's just buy the politician. Let's just give them a bribe. They'll do anything.
Then pardon a bunch of others to just like kind of conceal the one dude who gave you money. I don't get why you had to pardon all the other child rapists. That's what I'm trying to ask.
No, Francesca, I'm 100% with you. I thought the same thing. I wondered the same thing. We're now at this point, those are all facts. Now it's speculation, right?
Sure.
Speculation is, one was the Bane move, like, oh yeah, I'll let the worst people in Kentucky out. That'll show you guys. The other is, if I release 428, they might not catch the 1, 2, or 3 that were my donors. Right. And by the way, that's a legal maneuver that lawyers do, not in terms of releasing terrible people, but if you're looking for a document, they'll send the other side so many documents that you won't be able to find a needle in a haystack. So in fact, Matt Bevin talking about the child rapist might be a way to distract people from his donor that he released. Because everybody's talking about what an unbelievably monstrous thing it was to talk about how the hymen wasn't broken for understandable reasons. Meanwhile, he's like, did the check clear? Did the check? Right. Okay, good. Don't talk about that guy, don't talk about that guy. Talk about the child rapist I released.
It's definitely the last question I was asking. I said, man, you already did it. You had something you said that was written about it that was absolutely ridiculous. Then you go on radio, and I guess the fact that Terry Miners, who was on the radio show, was challenging him on it for 17 minutes, then at least I was like, man, you should probably just go home and sit down right now. But no, he's out there vocally saying what he had to do.
Please don't ever say that word ever again. Also, I can't, just don't say hymen.
I know.
Don't say that word.
So, by the way, another rapist he released was Dayton Jones, first-degree sodomy, first-degree wanton endangerment, first-degree distribution of matter portraying sexual performance by a minor. It was a 15-year-old boy at a party, raped so violently he had internal injuries. And it was filmed and posted on social media, and Matt Bevin let him go. Matt Bevin let him go. Jesus Christ, man.
I hope there were at least some inmates in on non-violent drug offenses. Silver lining, marijuana possession, pardoned.
The worst of the worst were released. And this is the corruption of our politics at its logical, horrific conclusion, where you could bribe any politician and you get this. All right, great interview coming up next.
Bye-bye.
amazing power panel. Look at this panel. You want to talk about power?
Like a smart Destiny's Child.
We're all too strong. We spun a revolution. Yes, another one.
Aren't you excited?
Wow. Some of the best writers in the country are right here on this panel, with the obvious exception of John Irola.
Let's not so quickly discount Harry Potter fan fiction.
Most of us are usually in boxer shorts underneath.
I went with the pants today.
This is the first ever power panel with Donald Trump as president.
We have elected the top Twitter troll in the country.
We have to stop pretending that race is not an issue in this country.
Now keep in mind, racism had gone away until Barack Obama brought it back.
That's right.
They want to protect life so much that they want to ensure that insurance companies don't cover your maternity care.
The Monsanto Corporation continues to sell an herbicide called Roundup. You should know that recent studies have linked this commercial herbicide to a significant increase in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. A diagnosis of this type of cancer can be devastating to you and your family, while Monsanto continues to profit from these sales. If you or a loved one were exposed to Roundup at work or at home and then developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, you might be entitled to financial compensation, and you have a right to take action now.
Turn your passions into potential investment opportunities. Whether it's cannabis, fashion, travel, video games, or anything in between, you tell us what you're interested in and we'll help you uncover the investment potential. Introducing Doe, our newest partner. With Doe, you can be an owner, not just a consumer, with no fees to trade individual stocks. Doe provides your daily one-stop investment shop with lists of companies that relate to your personal interests, relevant news on your favorite stocks, and videos that unpack today's money-moving headlines in under 3 minutes. Go to doe.com/TYT and download today.
Listen up, you fart faces. I know you two chuckleheads have been getting into monkey shines while on the company's dime.
On February 3rd, Ja'Cory, you wrote, "Slaps roof. You can fit so much spaghetti in this bad boy."
We were on our way to go get lunch.
What does that mean? Catch these hands.
It's like lend a hand.
This is ridiculous. They're clearly lying. I mean, read this. Damn, our boy Hassan, looking dummy thick today. This is obviously sexual and highly inappropriate for work.
Daddy, chill.
Hi everyone, my name is Julie. I work on PR and marketing for TYT. I'm about to show you guys my collection of political memorabilia. So let's get started with the Obamas. Hi Michelle. I like to wear one on each foot so I can say that I'm walking with the Obamas. To the right is my Abraham Lincoln tote. So I get to be eco-friendly and I get to take Abe with me on my errands. And of course, can't be without my socks filled with Abe Lincoln's face. Duh. Brand new Bill Clinton socks. These were on clearance, Alexander Hamilton socks, which I like to wear during Politicon. This really cool lanyard as a souvenir from my internship back in 2013. Around it, I have my RBG keychain. My boss gifted me these really iconic women cards featuring Hillary Clinton, Sojourner Truth, Rosa Parks, Susan B. Anthony, Sacagawea. All right, that's it. Cheers.
All right, back on the Young Turks. I got a great guest for you guys right now. So he's a writer, producer, director, Scott Burns. He's done a couple of movies you might remember. Academy Award-winning documentary, An Inconvenient Truth. He was a producer on that. Inconvenient sequel, Sea of Shadows, wrote Bourne Ultimatum, The Informant, Contagion, Side Effects, and now has written and produced The Laundromat on Netflix. These are amazing movies. And The Report is now on Amazon. He wrote, produced, and directed that one. So Scott, great to have you here, brother.
Good to be here.
Okay, yes. So that's a hell of a resume, man. That's a good career. All right, I want to talk about the latest ones because they're right up our alley. Hopefully we'll have time to talk about your career, but these movies are too interesting. Okay, so the report is about the CIA torture. So before we show the trailer and get into the nitty-gritty, why? Like, I mean, a lot of people want to do popcorn movies. You and direct a movie about torture. What made you do it?
They serve popcorn at the report, so it could still be a popcorn movie if you want. There were a lot of things that sort of coalesced to make me wanna tell this story. I think, first of all, the CIA's enhanced interrogation program, was, in my estimation, one of the worst things that's happened in my lifetime in this country, and it sort of got short shrift in the news. So I wanted to tell a story about that using film and get it into popular culture. So that had a lot to do with it. Also, when I started to do my research, I met this guy, Daniel Jones, who was the lead investigator who wrote the report. And Daniel, in my opinion, and the opinion of others, Jane Mayer, who is a great journalist for the New Yorker, was someone I worked with on the script at times. And Jane said, Dan's an American hero. And I wanted to write about an American hero in a moment when we are really struggling with partisan politics, because this story is truly bipartisan.
Yeah, and actually, give you a great say. First of all, Daniel Jones was an American hero. That's why they tried to have him arrested, of course.
Yeah.
We'll come back to that in a second. And it's so bipartisan. Normally, I think Dianne Feinstein is way too conservative for my taste and not a big fan. But here, she is the hero. And so credit where credit is due. Annette Bening plays her. So let's take a look at the trailer and then come back and talk about it.
After 9/11, everyone was scared.
Possible hijacked plane.
Scared it might happen again.
Obvious terrorist attack.
It was my second day of grad school. Next day, I changed all my classes to national security.
Morning, Dan.
Morning, Senator.
Have you seen the story today in the New York Times?
Evidently, the CIA destroyed tapes of interrogations of Al-Qaeda detainees.
I want to find out what was on the tapes and why they were destroyed.
No paper.
Paper is a way of getting people in trouble at our place.
At our place, paper's how we keep track of laws. Last night I found this. He's detainee number 24. Have you guys used this thing before?
No, we watched the video.
They waterboarded him 183 times.
11, 12.
Everything they got from him was either a lie or something they already had.
If it works, why do you need to do it 183 times?
Maybe when the report comes out, people will finally see that.
So that line that Feinstein has there is what I said on the show about 1,000 times. I was like, if it didn't work the 182nd time, it wasn't about it working.
Yeah, no, it wasn't.
It is so much more I learned though from this. So I didn't know that enhanced interrogation was a translation from German, and that it was the Nazis that originally used that word, that phrase.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was just a coincidence that they ended up coming up with the exact same English words that the Nazis used. But there's kind of a fascinating story about that. When we liberated the German prisoner of war camps at the end of World War II, we found a lot of our guys dead in the snow. They had obviously been treated barbarically, and there was a big outcry in this country about, well, why are we treating German prisoners of war in accordance with the Geneva Convention? We gave them the same meals our guys got. We treated them with respect. If they worked, they were paid a wage. And there was a big debate in this country about should we be doing that? And the end of that debate in Congress was this: no, we should not do that because we are not Nazis. And it's sort of stunning to me that we then find ourselves doing these techniques, in Vietnam and in Latin America, and then again, here after 9/11.
So actually, Another thing I learned from this, I knew that we got our best information from Nazis that we had captured by treating them well. We took them down to Alabama, we played ping pong with them, even took them to state dinners, and we got the best information. It was not because we wanted to treat the Nazis nice, because we knew that that's what worked best. What I learned from this, though, is that the Nazis did the same. So even though they had the enhanced interrogation phrase and they had been brutal to some of our prisoners, wasn't their most effective interrogator someone who actually used the reverse?
Yeah, there was a guy named Hans Scharf who was the best guy the Nazis had, and he worked on about 500 airmen, British, American airmen who were shot down over Europe. And Scharf, got to know them, did what we now call in law enforcement rapport building, and he was able to get a lot of really important information. We were in fact so impressed with Hans Scharf's methodology that after the war, the Pentagon hired Hans Scharf.
Oh my God.
And used him to train our people. So the methods, when I started doing my research, I spoke to military interrogators, I spoke to Ali Soufan, who was the FBI's Arabic-speaking interrogator who helped solve the Cole. And Ali Soufan was sent in with Abu Zubaydah, who was our first detainee. And I would ask these guys, so what do you do? What works? And they're like, one thing works, and it's always worked. And that's rapport building. You understand these people, you talk to them, and eventually they break because they have no real choice. And so you have to kind of question, why did the CIA go down this other path?
Well, that's exactly what I was gonna get to. So before we get there though, so people understand, what did they do? Like what's walling? What are the different methods that they use that are torture by law?
So there were a number of methods that these two psychologists, who are Air Force psychologists, one is named Jim Mitchell, one is named Bruce Jessen. They had worked at Sears School at Fairchild Air Force Base in Spokane. And just so people understand what Sears School is where we send like Navy SEALs and Air Force Rangers to go and get trained. So if they get captured, they are prepared for the worst things that the worst regimes on earth will do. And we do this so that they understand, it stands for survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. And it is exactly that. You learn skills so that you are not instantly traumatized when these people start doing really barbaric things to you. So these two psychologists after 9/11 decided that they could reverse engineer this. And so even though these were never techniques that people thought got the truth, and in fact, if you go and look through history, regimes use them to get false confessions, not the truth. So even though they knew all of this, they go into the CIA and go, we have the special sauce. We know how to make these Al-Qaeda guys talk. And those techniques involved things like walling, which meant slamming a guy into the wall repeatedly. Things like waterboarding, which is simulated drowning. Things like sleep deprivation, where we would keep people up for days at a time with bright lights and blasting music in their cells. Things called stress positions, where we would chain people up. The list goes on and on. I mean, the Office of Legal Counsel under John Yoo and the George Bush in the second Bush administration approved these techniques under the condition that if they provided unique intelligence, which was a big term, unique intelligence that saved American lives, then the president could order them.
And did they?
No, not according to the Senate's report. And I think that that's the important piece of American history, because Harvard did a poll not long ago where they asked people, even to this day, do you believe that these techniques result in getting intelligence that thwarted attacks and saved American lives? And about half of our country still believes that these things work. Even though, according to this report, which took 5 years to do, was bipartisan, its biggest proponents were John McCain and Dianne Feinstein, and the military, by the way, and they do not endorse these things. So all of these different constituencies recognize that this is a bad idea, it's against who we are, it's against our laws, and it doesn't work. There's still half of our country who think that this is a way to save lives. And that had a lot to do with why I wanted to tell this story.
So there's also the insult slap, et cetera. And those are just euphemisms for kicking the crap out of some guy, slamming him against the wall, slapping him around, threatening him, etc. And these are all torture, not just by international law, but by US law. Correct. So that's why they had to come up with a new Nazi term for it, so that it's technically not called torture. So then, which leads to maybe the most important question. Why? They know. It's not like they don't know. It's not like Dick Cheney doesn't know the history of interrogations, and the people at the CIA don't know the history of interrogations. They know it doesn't work. So why'd they do it?
I think that's an open question for all of us to ponder. After 9/11, as the movie says, I think there was a lot of shame at the CIA. And there's a psychologist who, I'm gonna get his name wrong, but he had a great quote, which came to me in the middle of me doing my research, that violence is an attempt to turn shame into self-esteem. And I think the CIA really felt that they had the right. And even, when I've gone to, dinner parties and gone around with the movie over the last year, there are people who will come up to me and whisper, so come on, after what they did to us, didn't we have the right to do that? And I just sort of stop them and go, tell me what you mean by they. Because the guys who hijacked the planes all died. So are you saying they is all Arab men? Are you saying it's all Muslims? And then you look at our history in World War II. We didn't put all the Germans in concentration camps in America or internment camps, but we did do that to the Japanese. And I think when you look at the history of this country, we have a tendency to do things to the other that we would not do to, white Judeo-Christian Europeans. And it's hard for me, having spent so much time looking at the story, to come up with any other conclusion than that.
Yeah, and Dr. James Gilligan was the guy, the psychologist that you were referring to. That's right. And also they who, in that some of the people we tortured were totally innocent. And so, oops. And then finally, though, on this, because I do want to talk about Laundromat, because that's also so interesting, that they got away with it, didn't they? And in fact, the ultimate irony is Gina Haspel. So they do the torture, they destroyed the tapes of the torture, which is wildly illegal. That they didn't go to jail for that is insane. And then who's Gina Haspel and what happened to her?
Well, Gina Haspel was somebody who was a part of the CIA's counterterrorism unit throughout this story. And when the media became aware that they had made tapes of these interrogations, the White House, actually, Harriet Miers, who was Bush's lawyer, said you can't destroy the tapes. There's a kind of thing that happens in this country when somebody destroys evidence, and we don't want to follow in that pattern. And the records show that the heads of the CIA, in fact, said we should not destroy the tapes. But Jose Rodriguez and Gina Haspel appear from all of the records, and I think by her own admission in her confirmation hearing, to have authorized the destruction of these tapes. And now we find that Gina Haspel is the head of the CIA. It's kind of stunning when you think about it, that the same Senate committee that approved this report in 2014, that put it out in the world, that same Senate Intelligence Committee turns around a couple years later and approves Gina Haspel as head of the CIA without any regard to the findings. And this is, I think, a bigger issue that I hope the movie, brings up in our society, which is, well, what the hell happened to accountability? Why is nobody held accountable? And driving over here, listening to the impeachment hearings, I think the same questions apply there.
Look, this is why I get so frustrated with the Democratic Party, because Daniel Jones, they tried to arrest him. The CIA tried to arrest him, and Dianne Feinstein, the reason she got so animated on this, if you ask me, is because the CIA tried to spy in on her. So then it got to her power and privilege, and then she got really upset, right? Yeah. But then, for God's sake, look, I want to give you credit, Senator Feinstein. Then just say, under no circumstances, putting Gina Haspel in as the head of the CIA is celebrating lawlessness. Our Republican colleagues are now just saying we should have anarchy, and they're pro-torture, pro-destroying evidence, etc. But they got no fight in them. It drives me crazy.
Yeah, I think the movie, look, when I wrote this movie and did the research, it becomes really clear that in the hierarchy of villainy, the CIA and Dick Cheney and the Bush administration are at the top. Yeah. But when you get to the Obama administration, and I will say flat out, and I have said this, since I've been going out talking about the movie, I voted for Barack Obama twice, and I'm thrilled that I lived in a time where I got to see him be elected president of the United States, and I have great admiration for him. That being said, there are things that I don't agree with. I don't agree with not holding the bankers accountable. I don't agree with not holding the CIA accountable. And I think that that's the pattern that you're speaking to. There's this sort of, politics of appeasement and this long game that the Democrats seem to believe in, that, well, if we go after them on this, they won't give us X, Y, or Z.
They're never gonna give you anything anyway. No, Scott, there's a reason I know I liked you. Okay, 100% right on Obama. I mean, saying we don't look backwards, we look forwards is absurd on its face. Then you'd have to let every criminal out of jail, because in order to prosecute anyone, you have to look backwards. Yeah. And so that philosophy was wrong. Okay, I gotta go to Laundromat, because that's also an amazing movie. Right. Okay, so that's about the Panama Papers. So before we go to a clip from that movie, how did we even find out about the Panama Papers? Because that's an amazing story.
Yeah, I mean, that's where this story sort of, crossed the threshold of my attention span. Was one day in the news, all of a sudden someone, named John Doe, released this trove of documents from a law firm in Panama called Mossack and Fonseca. And what that law firm does is allows people to set up these offshore shell corporations where they hide money. And a lot of that money, because no due diligence is done, comes from criminality at every level, whether it's people who are elected officials who are squirreling away bribes, or outright criminals, drug runners, people who are doing money laundering. And it brought down leaders of a number of countries. The Prime Minister of Iceland had to go. Other people are incriminated in them. And they sent this to a thing called the ICIJ, which is the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. And they have done an amazing job of trying to turn this trove of hundreds of thousands of documents into news stories that people can understand. Because one of the stunning things I learned in doing my research here is, the problems that we look at in our lives, like bad schools and bad roads and a host of other things, bad healthcare. It isn't because we don't have enough money. It's because we don't collect the money from our tax base that exists in the world. And that's what I really tried to tell, that these problems aren't as mysterious as we think they are, and they're not insolvable.
And usually nothing gets done about that either, because those are the same donors that fund our politicians. I want to talk about how it unraveled though, but first let's take a quick look at a clip from the movie.
Now, privacy and secrecy are two different things. Privacy is locking the bathroom door when you want to take a pee. Secrecy, on the other hand, is locking the door because what you are doing in a bathroom isn't what people usually do. And sometimes, after privacy has had a few drinks, he might decide he wants to spend the night with secrecy, just to explore their relationship. But where can they be together without people peeking in through the curtains? Well, usually in an offshore company. That way, someone looks in a window, they see an empty room, and the window and the room could be in two different places. Yeah, the window could be in the British Virgin Islands, and the room could be in
China. Goes all the way to China. Mel found it on the internet. They had the whole story.
Mom, I think you're spending too much time obsessing on this.
Politicians are doing it. It's not just criminals. Bribery, corruption, money laundering, millions and millions and millions of dollars. And they're trying to hide the whole thing through this company called Russell Properties.
Okay, so really important. Who's Meryl Streep in the movie there?
Meryl Streep at that point in the movie is Ellen Martin, who is a fictional character who begins her sort of interest in this odyssey when she goes on a cruise in New York on a fall day, and the boat capsizes and a lot of people die. And Ellen Martin begins to sort of pick at this because the insurance company that the cruise line had turns out to be owned by a shell corporation inside of a shell corporation, and there is no money. And this again goes to this thing that Stephen and I were trying to do in the movie, which is take this very abstract notion of this private world of high finance and show how it affects everybody.
Yeah, Steven Soderbergh directed the movie. So again, one more time, let's talk about consequences. I know we limited time here, but okay, once we found out, oh, they're hiding all the money, they're not paying their taxes, they're doing all this criminality, what happened then?
Well, there were a lot of people who were humiliated and embarrassed and did have to resign from positions in government. And the ICIJ has done an amazing job online of showing the connections of these things, but it affects our world. I mean, there are a lot of oligarchs in the database that you can go and learn about. There are other political figures that still walk the earth. And so the consequences for those who use this, are relatively small, if nothing at all. Other than that people who are elected officials who clearly wound up with money that they couldn't account for, were sort of shamed out of public life. For Mossack and Fonseca themselves, they're in an interesting position because these are guys who really played by the rules that, as you pointed out before, were created by the US government and other governments. And they do that to curry favor with high net worth donors. And so it's hard to figure out how to correct this unless you get money out of politics. Because right now, and this was John Doe's point in their manifesto, when they release this, is that the big problem here is it's pay to play in American politics, and elected officials are not going to create tax laws and stop what is called tax avoidance, which is really similar to tax evasion, but not a crime. They're not going to pass laws to stop tax avoidance and level the playing field for everybody because they get money from these people.
100%. So, and now when we catch up to present day, Donald Trump had his money in Deutsche Bank in this section that was called the Global Laundromat. Later by prosecutors, the same place where the Russian oligarchs had their money, and the Republicans cut the budget for the IRS. So they would have less money to track tax avoidance by the very wealthy who are their donors.
Exactly.
So that's where we are. Okay, next time we're gonna talk about how you got into this because your movies are too interesting. They take up the whole interview. Okay, so everybody check out the report. It's on Amazon now. Laundromat's on Netflix, so you can see both. Scott Burns, amazing movies. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
This was fun.
Absolutely. All right, thank you guys.
Hello and welcome to the Friday postgame, the 15th hour, also the final Friday postgame of 2019. Did you know that?
I thought you were gonna say final postgame ever.
Well, I don't mean it could be. There's always that chance.
So what's going on next Thursday, Friday?
Postmates is we're being preempted by Hostmates.
I'll say I don't understand that. We can just put it up on the website for on-demand viewing. What is it? What does this preempted mean?
Well, it wasn't my decision.
Never mind. I know.
They don't want to. I mean, the Friday postgame, it sucks so much oxygen away from everything else. It would be like we can't publish Hostmates and everybody just ignores it to watch the Friday postgame.
It's just put it up so people can watch it whenever they want. But all right.
Dave Kohler screaming into the wilderness. If Dave Kohler complains,
it turns out, I did some investigative reporting or researching. Turns out that everyone here at TYT is very, very jealous of this.
Oh, really?
Well, of what we have.
Yeah.
And they're trying to tear us down. It's obvious. The claws are out.
Right.
And they're very jealous of a couple of things. One, our good looks. 2, our excellent hosting skills. And 3, the appreciation that we get from the TYT fans.
Oh,
the
right.
true loyal fans.
The Proud 19.
That's right. They don't have that. Very jealous.
And what about the unique chemistry, the three of us, together? I mean, we got a collective over 150 years of experience on Earth, the three of us.
Oh my God, yeah.
Steve turned 50 this week, everybody. Happy birthday. Woo!
Thank you very much.
So why weren't?
It feels really weird.
You look fantastic.
Oh, thanks.
So why wasn't or weren't any of the three of us invited to be on Hostmates?
That again is
because we're not considered real hosts. I think that's a problem.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, it's not like we aren't considered hosts or we're never considered hosts, but our faces, our names and photos were actually literally taken down from the website on the list of hosts. Like when you go to the host page, we used to be there and now we're not. So it's not like somebody just like overlooked the idea of putting us up. Somebody actively chose or was instructed not to put us up. So that's the kind of disrespect we get around.